Good evening. Tempers flared at Universal Studios tonight when the park ran out of its signature drink, butterbeer. What started as disappointment soon grew into a noisy confrontation with security and police.
Merry Christmas. Ho, ho, ho. It's Christmas. Yeah. Sleigh bells ring. It's Christmas. Let's go. Gift in my hand. It's Christmas. Rap quick, more Christmas. Right up the block. It's Christmas. Yeah.
Yo, move. Back up. Oh my God. It's hitting the monorail.
Get ready to blast beyond your imagination at the all-new Epic Universe theme park.
It's the adventure of every world in one place.
Thrill through twisting coasters, journey through cosmic frontiers, and end your night under dazzling...
Buckle up, time travelers. Blast through the past, rocket to the future, and hang on tight as you chase the clock in the ultimate adventure. It's fast, it's furious, and it's only at Universal Studios Orlando. Back to the...
Hello, neighbor. Welcome to the Capture the Magic channel. I'm so glad you found your way here. I've heard that the host, Jared, is a very handsome and charming guy. And you know something? I think you'll enjoy listening to him a whole lot.
What's up, everybody? Sorry for the old intro. Right before we went live, I was like, I have not updated that intro, but it's post-Christmas. It's the last Christmas celebration we'll have here, but hopefully everybody's doing well on this nice Friday evening. Just as a little reminder here, I have a producer. I have producer Theo. I have a new employee. He's shots. You hear me? He'll probably yell at me at some time. I have him for the time being. So you can check him out. He's taking requests, I think. But we have some fun topics to talk about, but I have a good crew here with me to talk about it. So as usual, we got Orange Grove 55 in the house. OG, thank you for being here. And hopefully you had a good New Year's. And where can everybody find you?
Yeah, no, it was great New Year's. Ready to start the new year off, with a brand new theme park in. But yeah, you can find me right here on YouTube, Orange Grove 55, talking theme park, studio, corporate talk, all that good stuff with these fine gentlemen all the time. So again, Orange Grove 55 here on YouTube and also on Instagram, Orange Grove 55.
Awesome stuff. And as usual, a different name, but he was here last time as well. We have Jose from Theme Park Philosophy, which I'm loving the new content over there. I will just say formerly known as Slimer, but Jose is here. Theme Park Philosophy. Thank you for being here. Where can everybody find you, Jose? And be sure to plug your new channel and your podcast.
Jared, thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I've rebranded my channel. It's now Theme Park Philosophy. Essentially what I do is I use philosophy to explore theme parks, the companies that run them, and see what they reveal about how we organize the human experience. So if you're really into that kind of content, make sure you check out my channel. Pretty easy, Theme Park Philosophy at YouTube and Instagram.
I like it.
There it is.
I like that angle on it because not a lot of people hit that. It's very like theme parks are intrinsically, I think, a lot of almost like subconscious things, like when you're going through theming and things like that. So it's an interesting topic. But we're also joined.
Real quick, I was actually telling Slimer that on the phone. I told you that. I'm like, that's an interesting angle that a lot of people haven't really hit. And in this theme park kind of space, you got to set yourself apart, and that's a great way to do it. I mean, that no one's really talking about theme parks through that sphere. And I think it's really kind of brilliant.
Thank you, guys.
I agree. You should do like a plate, like a thinking man like thing for your channel icon, like with like a Mickey ears or something. Be kind of interesting. But we also joined by Mr. Theme Park Conductor. Thank you for being here. Where everybody find you, and hopefully you and Jose as well had a good New Year's.
I did. My New Year's was nice and quiet until I saw the ball drop in New York. Then things got exciting for about 2 minutes and then went back to quiet. But you can find me on YouTube and Blue Sky at Theme Park Conductor, on Instagram at theme_park_conductor, on X at Theme Conductor, TikTok at Theme Park Conductor 1, and every Sunday at 5 or 7 p.m. for Conductor Sunday live stream, where we have amazing guests like the one and only Orange Grove 55. Jared has been on the channel, and hopefully soon I will have Theme Park Philosophy on the channel as well, because he's starting a new channel. I love bringing new content creators on, or existing content creators that rebrand and talk all about the theme park. So it's a great time, and the chat interacts with us. We interact with the chat. It is just so awesome.
Sorry, I was muted. My dog is yelping in the background. I was trying to keep you guys from that. That's awesome. And I love the Conductor Sundays. Those are always good. Because I like how you just go into like this. It's a nice chill, like Sunday evenings. Okay. Can you guys hear that dog?
A little bit. Not bad, though.
Oh, gosh,
It's fine.
I apologize. I'm the only one here. I got stuck with the dog because they're like, oh, is there nobody else home? I'm like, nope, just me. But no, those are good. My New Year's was actually really chill. It was actually kind of chilly. So we did like a bonfire a little bit, just kind of hung out. And I will say, so far, 2026 is a strange start to the year, I will say. I started off the year for a weekend, was demonetized due to like a verification issue. And then on the Monday, it was remonetized, which that's a whirlwind. Because anytime, like, even if it's not for, like, it'll get fixed. I was talking to OG about this, but you just don't know when. Like, it might be in 3 days. It might be in 3 weeks. It could be in 2 months. You just don't know. But that got fixed. And then, like, the same day I got remonetized, I got a phone call that my grandmother passed away. And I was like, okay. And then I had some more good news after that. So it's been up and down. I don't really know what's going on with 2026. So far, I'm just going to say it's okay. But hopefully it's going to be a great year. Looking forward to most of the year here. But we do have some interesting topics to go over. And I think the first one here, I'm very curious what you guys think about this. Because I have some, well, as typical, I have some thoughts on this. But this is from Deadline. It says Disney, no, we already know as well, Disney is going to do AI content on Disney Plus. They've talked about. They're also going to add vertical videos to push to boost daily engagement. So it says the arrival of a new format later this year was one of the several advertising-oriented announcements the company made Wednesday at its Tech Plus Data Showcase at CES in Las Vegas. They said, we'll look to evolve the experience over time. They said that they've been doing what they call verts on the ESPN app, and the aim is to explore its use in a variety of ways across categories and content types for a personalized and dynamic feed that will include expanding across news and entertainment, turning Disney Plus into a must-visit daily destination. Obviously, it was talked about before. It was rumored that Disney was going to do their own type of YouTube or social media. Obviously, they're doing something like this in Disney Plus. What do you guys think about this? Do you think this is a good idea, or do you think this is just going to, like, I'm very curious what you guys think about this.
Well, I'm not a big fan of vertical videos. I mean, I guess it's okay when you're dealing with like Instagram because that's a vertical platform. But like, I don't see Disney Plus as a vertical platform. I see Disney Plus more like a YouTube. And like, you don't like, you watch it more horizontally. And so that vertical thing, I don't know. It's just my OCD. It kind of drives me a little crazy when you see like the 2 black spaces on the side, you know what I'm saying? No. And I'm not a fan of it. I think it makes content look a little bit amateur. Now, like I said, if you're watching it like on an Instagram or you're watching it on like a TikTok, that's a different story because it fills the entire space. It's just when you're watching it on like a horizontal platform, like an iPad or like on your TV or something, but you have that vertical video and there's these 2 black, what would you call them? Like banners on both sides. I just don't think it looks very professional in my opinion. So yeah, that's kind of where I stand with it, but we'll kind of see how they integrate it. I kind of understand why they're doing it, but I guess it just depends on the execution.
I kind of view it. I don't think, and I think the same thing for AI. I don't think anybody is going to sign up for Disney Plus to access vertical content that you can get on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook Reels or whatever. Like, I just don't think that is going to be something where people would be like, yeah, I'm going to pay however much it is a month to get Disney Plus to have this content. I view it as them trying to stop people from canceling, like churn rate. Because if you make it a habit with people, it's much harder for them to drop the subscription if they're using it daily. That's my guess as to what this is aiming at. Because I just don't see a world in which people say, oh man, I got to go check out Disney Plus. Who knows when they're called verts or whatever. I just don't think that's going to, especially when you get all this stuff for free. And a lot of this stuff that I think is going to be on Disney Plus, it's very likely to end up on Instagram and TikTok and all these other platforms anyways, I would guess.
Right.
So that's my guess as to what they're doing. But I do think this has been in the works for a while because they've been wanting to emulate YouTube and these other ones for a while. And it kind of makes me think they don't, like, Disney Plus is maybe hit this point where they're not gaining any more subscribers. And so they're just trying to branch it out to just different types of content to try and cobble together something to see if they can coalesce more. But I don't know. What do you think, Jose?
Well, yeah, that's all true, and I agree with you. And John MK Make It Rain says they are preparing for their legacy media revenues to fall. I think that's part of it too. I think another part of it is that this is also another opportunity for them to tap into ad revenue stream, because if this is going to have advertisements on it, like I could only assume that it will, this is another ad revenue stream for the company. I also do agree that it does tap into that addictive nature of social media, and it's a better way to prevent churn. Additionally, I think that there's also the possibility that they might configure Disney Plus to be more like an Instagram, at least on the mobile app, so that Disney fans that enjoy scrolling through, let's say, Disney IP exclusive content might opt to go onto there versus IG, and that effectively would make them a competitor, albeit a smaller competitor to Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. They might also make some maybe some cross-platform deals with TikTok and Instagram. I don't know what all that would entail, but it certainly would entail people being redirected to a Disney Plus app, or maybe you see Disney Plus exclusive or non-exclusive, but kind of like tantalizing content on Instagram, but then you have to go to Disney Plus and become a subscriber to see the rest. And then lastly, the last thing I think this does for the Disney company is that it creates a new stream of data collection when it comes to what their users are interested in, because obviously people are going to give feedback on what they like and make comments on things that they're interested in, which is a whole new subset of data that Disney doesn't have, that Disney's not tapping into now. So from a business perspective, this makes all the sense in the world. Business practice wise, you cannot be against this. This is a big plus for Disney in terms of like what it means ethically, or like how that enhances the Disney consumer experience. I mean, who's to say? I mean, how I want to experience Disney, and how somebody that is 21 years old that scrolls for 6 hours a day wants to experience Disney. We have two completely Disney experiences.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you on the ad, because I think on the ad revenue, because that's also what they're going to do with the AI stuff. It's another way to run ads on content that's on there. I personally, now what makes me, this kind of reminds me of others have tried to do a social media platform. I mean, they obviously have Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, but Google, which is one of the biggest companies in the world, has tried this numerous times. I think the last time they tried it was called like Google Plus. I can't remember what that thing was called, but they tried to do their own social media as well, and that thing crashed and burned. So there have been others that have attempted this type of stuff. Personally, for me, if it's behind a paywall 100%, I view this as strictly a way to just try and get engagement amongst active users, and just keep, like you were saying, the addictive nature of it, keep them on the platform, because it's much harder to cancel. I think it might be smart if either within the app or a separate app, it's like, it's just another social media thing you can get. And then inside of it, they say they got something for whatever, a show or movie coming on there, you see it, then they offer you like, hey, you can go check this out, go subscribe over to Disney Plus. Like, it could be a way to a funnel to get people into Disney Plus potentially. I think I'm very curious how they will implement this ultimately. But Conductor, what do you think about this?
So I'm going to start off what OG said was that vertical content, it really depends on how they execute it, is how the quality is going to be. Because I couldn't agree more, and I'm guilty of it myself, filming content in the parks. Sometimes I don't realize I might shoot something vertical, throw it on YouTube, and then you have that black wall situation that gives Orange Go 55 shimmers over there. And it does happen. We're all human. We're not AI yet that I know of.
You never know.
But you know, something that all three of you gentlemen have said, and I was thinking about it. If Disney is looking at possibly eventually maybe getting their own social media platform, and I mean creating their own app, okay, and trying to tie that into the Disney Plus streaming service, you know, is there a possibility, and this is more of a question than an answer, but is it a possibility that a lot of Disney content might move to this new app, kind of get away from the Instagrams, the X's, the TikToks, and all that, and only be on a Disney, platform that they've created, that's on their own app, their own social media, and it's almost like a subscription base. So it's like kind of like what they're doing right now since they acquired Hulu. They're kind of tying that in, and then there's other tiers of Hulu and even Disney Plus that you can upgrade and have more options. What if they do that with an app that they create that will get people to sign up for it, possibly pay for a service each month, and get exclusive content, whether it's like a post, updates about the parks, or something coming out on Disney Plus, and the only way to view it is on this app? Or do you think that would be too aggressive?
I think it would be smart. I mean, just from I have a marketing background. One of the hardest things to get people to do is break a habit, which means, and this is one thing that I've said about, Hollywood right now, is also people breaking a habit. It's really difficult to get them back in the habit, like going to movies. And obviously people have gone out of the habit of going to movies like they used to, and they're feeling the ramifications of that now. So you already have people that are on TikTok, Instagram, all these places.
Sure.
You think that people are going to ditch those or just be like, I'm also going to add this one into the repertoire over here, is a challenge. I'm not saying Disney couldn't do it, but I think it would be a much better idea to, you still have your stuff that you put on the regular social medias, but like you have a reason for people to go over and check this out. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that either Disney or somebody ends up doing vertical, like a show that's all in a vertical format. Like, I think with the younger generations, like I agree with OG. I don't really care for vertical content in terms of like long form, but I wouldn't be shocked if down the road there's some new show that they try out in a vertical format to see if that catches on. So that could be beyond just like social media stuff. To me, though, like ESPN's done it with the Verts thing, but I kind of look at sports and like what Disney would offer is different, because sports, it's like if you're a sports fan and it might be like a small version of Sports Center, where you just get the latest highlights and because you're just into all sports or whatever. But Disney is one aspect of entertainment. Granted, they have a lot of it, but there's other things. So it's like you'd have to get people a really good reason to go over there and check that out. So I kind of feel like they're going to have some sort of funnel where they're going to feed people, try to get into it, which is why I think it'd be a good idea to make that portion of Disney Plus free, and then the other stuff is behind the paywall, personally.
Yeah. Smart.
But I don't know if we don't know any details about that, but I think that would be the way to go about that. But yeah, it's interesting. Like I feel like this is not speaking to me, because I'm the same way. Like I get on the social medias, but I'm not consuming a ton of content that way, like in the vertical format. But obviously it is a big thing. I suppose it's the question of, are they going to allow user generated content, or is it just going to be all stuff from Disney? And I think that's going to be really curious how they set that up.
Well, it's interesting too how they really are, whether I like these decisions or don't like these decisions. I will commend Disney for trying to sort of reinvent the streaming platform. Like, I feel like between this and the Gen AI stuff and all that, I feel like there's an effort from Disney, and even the gaming. I think some of the gaming is going to go on here soon, right? I think, if I'm not mistaken, on Disney Plus, there was supposed to be some gaming added to Disney Plus eventually, right?
I mean, Netflix has done that, so probably.
Well,
yeah,
remember.
So at least they're trying to reinvent. Go ahead, Jose.
No, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think that's a really important point, and I think it's one worth mentioning. I forgot the gamer's name, but he's a Fortnite gamer. He's the one that did the first Fortnite live stream from Galaxy's Edge. Do you guys know how many viewers he had when he was doing his live stream?
No,
I couldn't tell you.
It was over 100,000 live.
Wow.
It was like 100. Yeah, it was 180,000. So that was proof in the pudding for Disney that this is something they can capitalize on. So I certainly think that there's going to be that component into it as well. I can see Fortnite live streaming being an exclusive thing on Disney Plus, and I can also see maybe some of the content creators that go to the parks doing a lot of live streaming on Disney Plus. So I think that's one thing that Disney is really missing out on is having some more of the more like, I guess you want to call them like maybe just like household names that do theme park content on their channel or on their streaming service, because there's so many people that follow them that are loyal to them. it would just be, in my opinion, it'd be like a goodwill. It would be like goodwill towards the fan base, especially the vlogger community. But I think that it would give the vloggers that are household names a house, if you will.
So if they were to do, I mean, would that mean, well, that if you look at it that way, it's like if they only have a select few they allow on, then that would mean Disney then is, they kind of do anyways, media events, but they're picking and choosing the creators in which that they approve of.
Right.
I feel like that could create an interesting situation. If I'm a content creator that says, I get the invite and says, hey, come on and do this. You already have this kind of weird thing where some of these content creators that get invited to the media stuff, people kind of already view them as like, are you being honest? Because you get invited to these things and there's like a quid pro quo about this. I feel like that would further that divide a little bit. Like Disney gets into picking and choosing people that are allowed to post content. Like I'm just very curious on that end. I don't disagree with what you're saying, but it's like, are they going to allow anybody to do it? And then it's, then what do they allow people to get on there that say negative things? Like this has been my question the whole time, or is it just very pro Disney stuff? I don't know.
Well, that's the thing. That's like the gift and the curse with this kind of like they're kind of almost going in like a YouTube sort of format where it's like they want to have content you can watch, but also content you can like create and like can be more engaging. So that's cool, but it's also risky, Jared, like you were saying, because it's like, what if our show is on Disney Plus, but we're critical though of the company when we don't like something, we're critical. Is that going to be allowed or is that not okay? Right. What if we say a bad word? What if we say, so it's like all these questions about that. But I mean, it's interesting, I'm even curious about that, even with the Gen AI stuff. Like how are they going to monitor all that content? I mean, you can have keywords that you'll block, I'm sure. Like you can't just do like an AI image of like Bob Iger. Like, what I'm saying? Like it won't let you do that. But there's only so much you can do with the internet. The internet always finds a way, and I'm just like, that's risky on their platform.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but people are only going to make content based off of the viewership that each content generates. So if let's say talking about subject X generates a lot more viewership, then what's going to happen is the release of content is going to eventually collapse into a pattern, just like it does on YouTube and Instagram and every other social media platform, because it's all algorithmic. And so they might have the intent to be as creative as possible, but again, if it's algorithmically based, everything's going to end up in a pattern anyways. And a lot of the times, what we know is that patterns are basically patterns are generated by negative content. And so so having people create their own content, put it on there, whether it's AI or doing what we do here, it's going to be very questionable for Disney to implement just from like the perspective of preserving the name brand of the company. And so it's like, well, what are they going to do then? I mean, like, I'd like to use the Christmas parade special as an example. This is something we actually criticized pretty heavily in our own group chat, because it was so corporatized. It was corporate schlock, and the editing between like a parade and then a commercial and then a very sweet moment was very, I don't want to use the word disingenuous, but it was almost like the editor was not paying attention to how emotions flowed from one thing to the next, making the breaks seem very cold and corporate. Yeah. And so for me, I would like to see a lot less of that stuff. And this is something that's been a problem with Disney going all the way back to Eisner. I remember watching Eisner and still being like, this is very corporate, but I feel like it's gotten worse now. So from that perspective, I would love for Disney to look out at, the Disney Creativerse and even at maybe the risk of maybe being, introducing some criticism into their platform by, let's say, bringing DSNY on, or, Drew the Disney Dude, or Orange Go 55, or Capture the Magic. Like, we all have our criticisms, even though we pay thousands of dollars to these companies every year. That is still more genuine than the corporate schlock that Disney produces. And if that's the trade-off, and if I'm Disney, I mean, personally, I'm looking at that as a positive. But again, It's the little things that you can control that will make, like, it takes is one person to say one thing and they're like, all right, we're done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
well,
100%.
and I think too, one of the things that has made a lot of, YouTube and all these social media platforms is authenticity. And I think a lot of people are put off by like corporatized things. That's not necessarily what people want. So if they're going this route of like everything's going to be controlled, which I would imagine they will, because Disney is trying to protect their name and they're going to want to control how they're viewed. I would be surprised if they allowed not content creators, but like ones that are a little questionable, that criticize them, because like it's just, they're not going to want that under their name banner. Now, if they did that, that would be an interesting thing, because that means they would be open to the criticism and they'd be willing to hear it. But if people view the content on there as not genuine, then I think people might go on there to check out previews for stuff, or maybe they could do it too, where it's like you can check out the new Avengers trailer featured on Disney Plus, social media aspect of it first before it goes out anywhere else. They can do things to bring people to the app by making things exclusive. They still have properties that people are into to be able to do that. But that's a daily usage thing. I would be rather surprised if people are just daily wanting to check in on the latest corporate stuff coming out of Disney. Like, there's so many ways you can check that out now. That doesn't break a habit that people have. Like, I think this is an uphill battle that they have if they're really going after this like daily usage of social media aspect of it.
That's the problem, is that vertical content is very authentic, even though it follows algorithms, but Disney is very curated. So can Disney be authentic and curated at the same time? That's the intersection that Disney's going to have to navigate.
Well, and I think go ahead, conductor.
Oh, no. One thing, I'm kind of soaking this all in as I'm listening to it, but to kind of break it down from what I understand is, if they decide to create an app and they start, restricting certain content here and there, and I understand you can't go on a platform and say all this horrendous stuff and get away with it. Eventually you're gonna get blacklisted. That's just the truth. But if you're honest and you're respectful and you kind of just tell it from your point of view on how you see things, I think Disney really has to consider that if they are going to create a platform. Because one of the things we see on Instagram, on X and TikTok and all these other ones like Facebook, is the fact that you see both sides of a topic, whether it's Disney, Universal, Comcast, Warner Brothers, whatever. You always see both sides on those platforms. It's never a one-side ordeal. And I kind of feel that if Disney goes down this rabbit hole of having one-side content alongside with vertical content, which we still don't know to this very minute how the quality is going to be, but kind of restricting content where people are honest about how they feel. And if Disney, like I think it was Jared who mentioned it, if they hear something they don't like, then they're like, okay, we're done. That kind of just proves a lot of people's concern. It's like, well, how can you be a platform if you only allow one side opinions and you don't allow both side opinions? Because you guys made it very clear, and I see it myself. When you have media events at the theme parks, at the studios, one of the things I notice is the content creators that get invited. You'll never hear Mondo, or you'll never hear Drew the Disney dude, or you'll never hear some of these other people really speak out about Disney or Universal that I've noticed, because they're loyalists, and there's nothing wrong with being like that. But the problem is it kind of shutters your own opinion on how you feel about the situation, because you're so worried about putting something out on a platform that now you're going to be canceled.
Yeah, I would respectfully disagree with that. I mean, in terms of like Mondo and Drew, I mean, Drew's been on OG55. He gets very critical. Mondo, I'm critical as well. I think those gentlemen, I think they do get pretty critical. I don't know, in my opinion.
They do, but there's critical and then there's more critical. And I'm talking about the more critical, not just the baseline critical. I'm talking like down in the mud critical. And that's something I kind of feel of a person looking in. It's like, if you can't say respectfully how you feel towards a company because you're afraid about getting blacklisted, that's a problem. No, and we can go round and round all day long on different levels of critical, but I'm going to kind of start from the medium to going high on critical. You can't tell me people can't have a voice for their opinion about something and then worried about getting canceled because people upstairs in the boardrooms and all that don't like what you have to say. It's like, if you're going to create a platform, you have to allow all sides. It doesn't matter where it's coming from. You have to allow all sides, because if you can't understand that, you can't, you can't allow that, then it's like, then you're playing the one-sided game. And I'm sorry, but that's how I feel. If I'm going to sit there and pay for a platform, and I'm not saying Disney's going to charge for their platform, but if they do, I want somewhere in the rules and regulations that usually you have to agree upon on most apps, and I want it said in there that we respectfully want to hear your opinions. We respectfully want to hear what you have to say, but all we ask is keep it respectful. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, critical is important. Critical is important, but yeah, how you say it is, like, for example, right? One of my favorite content creators of all time isn't even a park person. He's Christian Harloff. Christian Harloff inspired me to get into this whole thing. I really enjoy his content. He's really fair, but yet he's also very critical. But the way that Christian Harloff kind of comes at his critiques, it's not frothy at the mouth, like, it's very like, okay, this is how I see it. The humor wasn't really my thing. It didn't land for me. I think that kind of critique is very important. I think that kind of critique, if Disney were to have creators on Disney Plus, creators like him, John Campia is actually very fair with his opinions. The only problem with Campia, though, he's got a potty mouth. I don't know, but he actually is very reasoned with his opinions. Or like Dan Murrell is another example. Like this is like more the film side, right? Like Park side, you could have like Offhand Disney, Drew the Disney Dude. We have these great creators that I think that can be respectful but also very critical. I think that would be like, for me, if I was Disney, that would be kind of like the approach. You just can't have creators on there like throwing like Molotovs, like getting crazy. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, it has to be critical, but with respect is basically what they would have to, the line they'd have to draw. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And Pandora 576 in the comments actually pretty much summed up what I was trying to get to, is how much censorship will there be on the platform? That's really going to be the honest question that I have. How much censorship are they going to go down to before people start getting upset and going back to the other platforms that kind of allow the censorship to still be restricted, but a lot looser than what this might be?
What also depends on their goal with this. So if their goal is just to basically have a place for Disney fans to go, then it will be heavily censored. It will just be an echo chamber. And because they're just wanting a hub for people that are Disney fans to go in there and enjoy Disney content and Disney park stuff, like that's one way they could go. It really is just going to depend upon what their usage and what their goal is for this. Because if they are wanting to go this route, like, and we don't know what type, we know that the AI user generated content will be part of it. But if they allow creators on there, and Rogue Attraction brought up like revenue shares and things like that, like there's lots of questions on how that would work. Would they share the revenue? Would they allow you to say, hey, go check out my other platforms? Like there's all sorts of questions around that. But I think if they were to allow people to be critical and have their opinions, it would be a way. And one of the biggest issues you have of big companies is really finding out from the ground floor, like what people think. And YouTube allows you, if you're willing to look, they can find that. but you could get a good idea of what people think about a new trailer. Like, you give them a lot more data, like Jose was saying, where you can really get a feel like, oh, this trailer people didn't like. Like, they could have real-time data that they could, and instead of having to go to YouTube to find it, they could get it in-house. So it could be an advantage for them. It just really depends which direction they go with this. How do they set this up? I still am going to contend that I don't think anybody's going to sign up for Disney Plus just to access this type of content. I just feel like it's going to be something that is going to accompany Disney Plus, that they're hoping that you watch and you know, check in on stuff. And I kind of feel like it's mostly going to be corporate curated stuff until they come out and say otherwise. That's what I'm going to assume they're going to do here. Previews, maybe have some creators, but very approved content that's going to end up being on here that basically promote the other stuff that's on Disney Plus.
Sure.
I agree with you. I think you took the words right out of my mouth. It's going to be very corporate curated stuff, and there's no reason to believe it's not going to be anything otherwise. I think this is an opportunity for them to collect data. It's a new ad revenue stream. It's a way for them to, like I said, tap into that social media addictive aspect of it to prevent churn. And that's pretty much it. I mean, if they want to get in ESPN into the game and maybe have ESPN access on Disney Plus as part of their vertical videos initiative, great. I think that's even better for the platform. All in all, I think this is a really good business decision. It's not a lose. Worst case scenario is they cut it off if it's not doing anything for the company. But I think that this is going to introduce a lot of things into the platform that they don't have now, which could potentially be revenue generators and potentially reduce churn.
Yeah. And Pandora says something great here. I like this. Criticism is valuable if the internet is to improve things rather than just tear something down. And that is really, I think, the dividing line here, where criticism is very healthy. And I think Disney should welcome that. Tearing it down for the sake of tearing it down is where that doesn't help anybody, you know? So I think if they can kind of walk that line, but here's the thing though, and Jared, you bring this, it's like, this is a lot of policing and monitoring. Like, is all this worth it, is what I'm trying to say at the end of the day though, too. Because even with the Gen AI stuff, you come across the same thing, like with all the content being created. I was talking about, like, how are you going to monitor this where people aren't creating inappropriate stuff? Like, I mean, you can have all the keyword blocks on there that you want, but like we said, the internet finds a way. It just seems like a lot of manpower to kind of get this whole thing. But I think Disney's I think they really want this platform to be more than just kind of like passive watching. I think they want it to be like this all-encompassing thing where you create content, you game on it, you shop on it. They want Disney Plus to be like this hub of all this different stuff, which is, in theory, in concept, is a cool idea. In practice, though, we'll see, you know?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's what they ideally would like it to be. And then, I mean, you do have a captive audience if that's the case, and people that are into your brand, you can market to them better. But I don't think it's gonna be something where you're gonna reach out to like people that aren't already into Disney stuff, and they're gonna be like, yeah, I'm gonna download Disney Plus for the curated content that's gonna be on here. Like, it's just, that's kind of how I'm viewing it at, you know, for the time being. But I mean, if they cross promote it with ESPN, like they have enough content. Like, you still have Marvel that's gonna have big with Doomsday Avengers, like, obviously. But like, if Star Wars was in a better place, if Marvel overall was in a better place, let's say animation was, everything that came out was crushing it, I think it might have a better potential of really catching on. Because I think if people are really into stuff, they might be much more willing to check this out. But with how things have kind of been hit or miss and hot and cold lately, I don't know where the overall, like, I think a lot of people that you could do a lot of build up into Avengers that people would definitely check it out for if you had exclusive previews and content on there for it. But just general stuff, it's going to be really difficult to get people to quit going to, say, TikTok and instead go to Disney Plus. Like, it's just, I think that's going to be a tough thing, because I've talked this before. Like, I think they're looking at YouTube and how big YouTube is. And I know this because I did a video on the Netflix stuff, and it's like, if Netflix gets Warner Brothers, they're going to be almost like 500 million subscribers or something, or 300 million subscribers. But Disney is way behind Netflix, and they may have reached market maturity in terms of nobody else is really, whoever subscribed to streaming is already subscribed to streaming. So it's just like trying to put out more like tentacles out there to try and gather up more people. I kind of think this is what that is. But YouTube works because YouTube is just a general platform where you have you can watch videos on anything on here. Like you can literally watch stuff on like ancient civilizations or learn new skills or entertainment, and versus Disney's going to be very narrow in what the scope will be.
Well, and that's a really good point, and that segues into my other problem here. You know, Disney, this is something that Mr. Seymour Duck says all the time. Disney was a family company, is still a family company, but now they've embraced their image as more of like a general entertainment company as well, since the acquisition of Hulu and Fox, right? So they do things like The Predator, they have adult content through Hulu on their streaming service. You know, at first this was very contentious, but it isn't now. It seems like people have already accepted that Disney is an umbrella company for a lot of different kinds of entertainment for people that enjoy a lot of different kinds of things. So in order for this to work, it can't be just the Disney family branded stuff. Like this has to be Disney, the general audience company, because otherwise it's just going to be such a narrow niche thing. You're going to be limiting a lot of your audience or a lot of your potential, not just revenue, but things in terms of data analytics and advertisements, by just narrowing the focus to and curating it just for Disney specific fans. So if this is going to work, it has to be a much broader approach as opposed to just, you know, castles and Mickey Mouse ice cream bars.
Yeah.
100%. And I think Disney, whether they do your idea, Jose, with bringing content creators in, independent creators onto this platform, or whether they just take, you know, their own talent or whatever to come on the platform, I think Disney needs to start just becoming a little bit more authentic with their stuff. Like you mentioned a great example, Jose, with the Christmas parade, right? It's like, okay, if you're not going to have outside creators come in, at least bring people in and sort of facilitate a much more authentic. I think right now more than ever, people want authenticity. That's why that, you know, like when people go to YouTube, it's the authentic voices that really catch on, right? Whether you're too positive or too negative, those usually fall off to the wayside. It's the authenticity that really, you know, excites people. I think Disney needs to get into that, where the people representing this stuff and trying to sell and market their parks and their films, it has to feel like you're not being sold something. You know, like a genuine person, like talking to you, hey, you know what, this is a cool thing, and not like, hey, you want to buy this new car, like that vibe. You know, it just, the approach needs to be different. I think Disney has really gone down that, and it's a massive corporation, obviously, but they've really gone down that corporate kind of road with the marketing. And honestly, I don't even watch a lot of Disney stuff, like with the parks, because a lot of it, like the Disney official stuff, a lot of it is kind of, you know, it's a very like fluffy stuff. You know what I'm saying? I want a little bit more like, you know, not, I don't know, just a little bit more real. You know what I'm saying? And I think they can do that. I just think they have to, you know, change their approach a little bit.
No, I agree. And by the way, I'll go by and say hey in the chat here in a minute, because I forgot to say hey to the chat at the beginning. My brain was frazzled. But Rogue Attraction had a good point, because recently they talked about how Stacy apparently is coming back. It used to be a big thing. She would show you around in the hotels and stuff. You see stuff. And he was saying that, are they going to use Stacy for vertical content?
Oh,
they definitely could. I mean, if you had a personality that could present park stuff and so, like, I do feel like in that timing of her coming back and this announcement, I kind of feel like might be intertwined a bit here. I do feel like that's the route they would go versus having like just, you know, big YouTubers do it, just because I think it would open up a situation where it's like you're picking and choosing winners instead. I think they'll just clearly choose people they want to feature and probably emulate a lot of stuff that's popular on YouTube and put it onto their platform and try and control it more, because corporations like control and they're really not good at being authentic. So unless Disney shows a different pattern here, or maybe if DiMaggio is named the CEO, maybe that changes. But as it has been, I'm just not going to assume that is what they're going to do. But another thing they could do, and he also brought up how Netflix, you can play games there with their whole thing with Epic Games. You could have a tie-in that you could throw the games, that whether that's playing it on the app or that's linking it over, giving discounts. Like there are potentials they could do, but you get into the social aspect of all this. It gets this is kind of unprecedented. Like you know, this would be like Disney doing it first, but it's like it's interesting being a singular brand doing this, and how will that look? And I think there's just lots of questions about it.
Well, and plus, I think the attractiveness, the appeal of like social media, whether it be TikTok or Instagram or even like, you know, places like X and all that, is that you by and large have the freedom to sort of speak your mind, put your opinion out there, you know, where Disney, it's different because they're not just providing you a platform to speak your opinion. It's also they're selling you a product.
Right.
So sometimes these two things don't work really great together sometimes, you know, like, so it's, and that's why I see what they want to do with it. I understand the vision. At the same time, though, when you dive into like the logistics of it, it's kind of a mess. I just don't know how they could really do this. Even the Gen AI stuff. I mean, just that alone. Yeah. I mean, just user generated content. How are they going to police that? Where you don't have Lightning McQueen and doing like, you know, how do you make it where that people aren't going to make stuff that's going to damage the brand? You know, you can only, you know,
undoubtedly it will. Because like you were saying, the internet finds a way. There's people that are going to find stuff. What's interesting, if they do user-generated content, are they going to allow, let's say you got a big streamer and they got a t-shirt line and be like, hey, go check out my t-shirts at my website. Are they going to allow that? Like there's lots of stuff that you could be super restrictive on. And then the incentive of like, what's the incentive for people? Like, are they going to allow you to post content that you put on YouTube also on Disney Plus, or does it has to be exclusive? Because then you're talking about it has to be worth your while to be able to provide that content.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. Like what? Yeah, like because you have a lot of creators, like you know, like you have the Capture the Magic T-shirt shop and stuff. Mm-hmm. So if you were featured on Disney Plus, would you be able to bring that up? Or is that off limits because you're selling something on their platform? That's a great point. And see, this is the issue though with this, right?
Yeah.
There's so many things that could go wrong, and kind of, I don't know. It's tough. It's tough. But we'll see.
One of those things where I don't think this is going to end up being like a runaway success necessarily. I could see it being like moderately, it gets used within the app and it serves its purpose of feeding content, or it just completely something they abandon like 2 years later. I kind of feel like this is kind of the odds I put it at. I would be shocked if it's something that becomes this like daily usage thing that's even close to say TikTok or Instagram or even YouTube Shorts for that matter. I would be surprised.
I agree. I think Disney, when it comes to because they're a big corporation, you know, they have very narrow guardrails as far as like what can be made about their company, what represents them. And I think that this is going to have very narrow guardrails, and that's going to predicate like how successful this is. This thing either soars or dies on whether they allow people to be authentic and whether they placate towards the general audience, or if this thing is going to have very narrow guardrails, like for generative AI, for example. Like if the only prompt you can make is, or the only prompt you can type in is, make a Disney Vacation Club ad.
Right.
It's not going to work.
It's not going to run ads on, and you don't get a cut of it.
And honestly, Jose, that you're probably not too far off, brother. You know what I'm saying? That might actually, you know, they love DVC. They love DVC.
Yeah, they're looking for DVC exclusive content creators. That could be another thing too. You seem good to do a call out, because I do think they will control it. They are going to have that type of content. It's going to be very, very controlled. But we'll see. Anybody else got any closing thoughts on this before we say hey to the chat?
No, I appreciate. I have a 2-track mind when it comes to this. I appreciate Disney looking for ways to kind of make Disney Plus, you know, a fresher platform and not just passive watching or whatever, and trying to try new things. I have always respected that. Even with the Star, you know, we saw the Galactic Star Cruiser mentioned in the chat. Even with giant failures like that, I still giant failures. I still respect. Cool. They tried something different, right? At the very end of the day. So when it comes to this stuff, I don't love a lot of it, but like, I respect the fact that they're trying to do something different with it instead of just kind of sitting on like what's good is good enough kind of thing. So it's cool, you know, but we'll see what happens. I mean, it's going to be, there's going to be some of the stuff is going to hit, some of it's not. And we'll have to kind of wait and see how it all shakes out. You know, they must have a plan. I mean, right? I hope.
I know. They just thought of this like the other day. They're like, yeah, just release it. Well, and one thing I just thought about this, if you look at like them wanting to take on Netflix, the amount of content Netflix puts out is crazy. And granted, they have access because they have third-party deals and everything like that. Disney doesn't put out that much content that's exclusive to Disney Plus, which I think is one of the issues that platform has. This could be one of their ways of trying to solve it versus increasing budgets. It's already come under fire because they're spending so much money to make these shows that are not hitting. You go to user-generated content because that doesn't cost you anything. And I think this could be a way for them to try that. Now, I don't think that would work. I don't think it, especially in this type of content, is available at other places, but this could be their attempt of doing that to have more content on the platform that's not going to be $250 million for a new show.
Now, what if they did something? What if they did something kind of like, you know how they kind of have like the disclaimers, like before, like the old school, before the old school like cartoons from like the 30s and 40s, like this was a bygone era and doesn't reflect the current company and yada yada yada, right?
Right. Yeah.
What if they allow Disney like independent content creators, like they allow a lot of us on Disney Plus, but then they just have some sort of disclaimer like these people don't represent the opinions and whatever of the Walt Disney Company. Could you see them doing something like that? Like where they kind of like distance themselves from the creator, but they're allowing them on the platform? Or
yeah, that would be interesting because that'd be almost like a badge of honor for a lot of people.
Yeah, I know, right?
I'm not Disney approved. Come check me out.
Or Josh
has a reel that starts like, we're here at Disney, but some content on this platform does not reflect our values, and then it play. Yeah, I mean, if they did it, I could see something like that happening for sure.
Parental discretion advised.
You know, that would be pretty funny. I mean,
Disney Company does not, or was it Orange Grove 55 does not reflect the Walt Disney Company and its views. But here is the video. Here you go.
Here's the video. You know, actually, it's kind of funny on the Universal Tram Tour in Hollywood. Jimmy Fallon does like the little on the monitors in the tram. He does like the little pre-show thing or whatever, and it's kind of funny. They dub whoever is driving your tram. They dub like their name over him, like so he'll like mouth it. He'll mouth something, but then there'll be a voice that goes over and be like Jessica, and it looks like those old kung fu movies, you know, where it doesn't match. It's like on purpose, you know. It'd be funny if they did that. Like they had Theme Parkin on Disney Plus, and they would go in there and dub it with some different audio over.
That would actually, I would be all for it because it'd be how many videos do you have? Like, does every video get that? Or you're like, oh, this one's approved apparently. That'd be kind of funny.
That would. I love it.
Oh man, Conductor, you got any thoughts on this before we or Jose? Any thoughts on this before we change the subject?
No, I've pretty much gotten everything out I want on that for now. I'm pretty sure that this is going to be an interesting experiment, but I don't know, man. Just the way they curate their content, I just don't see this. I just don't see this being intriguing for somebody like me. So.
Yeah,
but we'll see. I'm gonna try it. I might end up liking it, but I don't know.
Yeah,
I just don't know.
We'll see. You never know how it all shakes out. But you're right. We might not be the demo, Jose, because you and I we're about the same age, and this is probably going to be for people who, you know, maybe like early 20s or something. You know, Gen Zers.
What's so interesting is Netflix even talks about one of the reasons that they were talking about they put so much context in every scene is because of what they call secondary viewing, because they know most of the younger people are watching a show, but they're watching something along with their phone. And so, like, to me, that's insane. If I'm watching a show, I'm watching a show. But there's so many people that do it. Like, I could see them trying to couple that with when you're watching a show, you can also check out this content. Like, I think that could be part of this too. Like, there's definitely different usage behaviors and different age groups, undoubtedly. And I agree. I don't think this necessarily for like our demo, because it's not something like we grew up doing, but younger generations have. Then I think they may be trying to tap into that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But all right, let's get some of the chat. I forgot to say hi to the chat. So hi, chat. Thank you for being here. We greatly appreciate you. I'm going to go through and try and catch up on some comments here. We have James All Day TV says, Star Wars is still dead. Dave Filoni will just put the nail in the coffin. We will talk about that. That's the next thing we're going to talk about.
We're going to talk.
Brandon Legown. Hold on. Now I know Brandon Lego Uni Disney fan. I remember that now. He says, I'm kind of intrigued. Maybe it's going to be mini promotions or something from the official social media accounts. I mean, at the very least, I think it will be that.
It'll definitely be that, yeah.
Yeah. Storybook Sorceress says, good night, everybody. Well, if you're still here, good night, Storybook Sorceress. This one, you had brought up this one, Jose. Sean Norani says, if you watch Disney Accelerator Program video, the companies they working with was the vertical company Drama Box, one was an AI company, and one was a 3D printer company. Well, we did know they did that 3D printed thing for Jungle Cruise.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting. I did a bar chat actually with my buddy Sam Chat, and we talked about that, the 3D printing stuff, and it's like that. I told him it was kind of ironic that the 3D printing news was coming out at the same time Disneyland Handcrafted is premiering.
Right.
I don't know. I just thought that was kind of hilarious, you know,
both sides of it, you know.
Both sides. But here's the thing, right? And this is where I said this in the video we did. I'm like it's because being older, you kind of get stuck in this, like, okay, you kind of love the nostalgia because that's what you grew up with. At the same time, though, as a person, I am very forward thinking. I do love and appreciate change, right? So this whole 3D printing thing is sort of like, I'm kind of like torn on it because I can, at one point, like some of it makes me sad because it's like, it takes away that human element, just one more thing that we have in this world with less human, you know what I'm saying? We have so much of that already with AI and all that. It's one more thing now that we're getting rid of the human being, which is kind of sucky. But at the same time, it also provides a lot of cool opportunities for Disney because they're saving money on like doing that canoe at Jungle Cruise or whatever by 3D printing it. And so that money theoretically can go towards cooler experiences or what have you, because they're cutting their overhead. Right. Yeah. So it can go either way. It kind of just all depends, but I'm like both excited and also kind of sad about that 3D printing thing. It could be really cool. At the same time, though, it could also, it takes away that human, you know?
It definitely depends on how they use it. Do you have a 3D printer, or any of you guys do?
No.
Mm-mm.
So I do. 3D printing is wild. Like when you first get one, you will make so much stuff. Because like I have it's back here. I have a Batman Batarang and stuff you can make. But there's some really interesting things you can do in terms of, there's even 3D printers that will eventually, I think what will happen is it'll basically 3D print a house. They're already kind of doing it with concrete.
Mm-hmm.
So it has a lot of very interesting things beyond just even doing it in your house. But in terms of a theme park, it's like, I do feel like that gets into, you know, you're not doing handcrafted stuff. Like it depends on how they implement it for sure. But 3D printing, though, is a wild thing to get into. It's a lot of fun. Like you can get very creative, like, especially with and there's places that do this now. When, let's say, a ride is no longer maintained by the company, you can make your own replacement parts. Like there's some really good uses of it in terms of just like maintenance and different things you can do. I've even done it with, like, I need a part and I couldn't get it from Amazon for a week, and I was able to actually do it and fix it and make it and print it out myself and do it and stuff like that.
Well, let me throw something at you, Jared, because you've dabbled in the whole 3D printing thing, right? I want to ask you a question. So one of the big issues we have with our monorail system out there in Florida, and even out here in California, there's not a whole lot of companies that make these things anymore.
Yeah, there's one.
There's one, right? Could this 3D printing thing open the door for, like, you know, better monorails, because now Disney won't have to necessarily depend on these outside companies. They can maybe 3D print their own parts and what have you. Is that possible even with 3D printing? Could you even do that? Or is that...
They probably have already done it. I know my dad used to work for Disney. I know in maintenance, they were already kind of doing that, like replacing parts needed, because the Disney World monorails are old. Like I think you had said, Jose, they're like 10 years, 15 years past their supposed like expiration date.
Yeah.
So if they get new ones, they would have to retrofit them, which you could 3D print. I mean, technically from a engineering standpoint, you could probably 3D print a monorail. Now I don't know what quality it would be, but you could. But it probably, a lot of it depends on the technology. But I think it's a good tool you could use in different situations. I just don't know if it'd be good to say, like, this whole ride was built with 3D printing. I'm like, I'm not going to write that. Like that, just, there's certain things that need to be like handmade and metal and steel. Like, there's things they can do with it, but it does have its uses. I just don't know if it's something that the audience will be like, oh, look at that really cool canoe that was 3D printed. It's like, it's not that cool. Like, it's cool if you made it and you saw it being made, but as the end user, it's just like whether it works or it doesn't, I suppose. But
yeah, I see potential in it, but it's also a slippery slope. Go ahead, Jose. Sorry about that.
No, you're good. I was just gonna say CNC machines. They've been making pieces that require high tension strength for decades, and I'm pretty sure they probably use their own CNC machines to make replacement parts, because all you got to do is just get a block of aluminum, make sure it's the same density and tension strength and all that. And I'm not an engineer, so anybody that's an engineer in the comments, feel free to jump in and tell me how wrong I am. But yeah, I mean they've been making their own parts for quite some time now, just because the limited availability of replacement parts, being that there's only one company. They just, I don't want to jump into monorail topic, but the monorails have not been faring very well on both coasts. If I'm Universal Studios, I'm looking at Disney's monorail, most recent monorail track record, and I'm not looking at investing in them.
That's a great monorail joke, by the way. Track record.
Yeah.
But you're right though. Do you guys see the thing on last night? What happened to the Disneyland monorail? Got stuck.
I saw a headline, but I didn't see exactly what happened.
Oh, you were there.
I was there. It was a nightmare, because I'm with the gentleman that I met during the 70th, and with the monorail, it didn't just stop there. So the people on the monorail were stuck there for at least an hour, if not an hour and a half.
Oh my God.
Then on top of that, the fire department finally came. They couldn't open up the main doors. So from what it looked like, and again, I could be wrong, but from the angle I saw, they were evacuating people through the monorail window, because those things run electrical. So they're trying to get people through the window on this ladder that's probably, I don't know, maybe 80 feet up in the air. Exactly. Nope. But with the monorail though, what kind of made it bad is there were multiple attractions that went down exactly the same time the monorail did. We had Indiana Jones go down. We had the train station, for some reason, the Disneyland Railroad, that went down. We had Tiana's went down. We had 2 other attractions go down. So it's like, I have to agree with Jose. When you look at the monorails, does Universal really want to do that? Probably not. But I do think, at least for the Florida park, I'm very interested to see if they really want to invest in a company that can tunnel underneath the swamplands out there, but I don't think it's even possible.
It's not going to happen.
I don't think so. So the only other way I see it is what we talked about on the last theme parking was, self-driving cars with their own lane, which is still kind of scary, or they visit the gondola system.
Yeah.
Yeah, but even that, it's tough, because those Waymos, man. I don't know if you guys have been seeing all the news on those too.
Dude,
I saw one guy
was going on a train line, like the thing was just off on its own.
I saw that one too, and I'm like, and the guy got out. He's like, "Oh, screw this, I'm walking."
I would too.
So I want to address something real quick. I think it was Arid Z21. He asked if they got free lightning lane. I don't know what they got, but I can promise you, I would tell Disney to shove it. I don't want a lightning lane. At the very minimum, I would want a free park ticket to come back, or if anything, maybe a free hotel stay. But you're not going to try to sit there and incite me with the lightning lane. You could take it. No.
Yeah, no, that's a pretty significant situation. That's like trauma inducing, going out the window. Yeah. How did they even get everybody out? Because I mean, those windows are pretty small, right?
They are.
Not everyone's the same size.
But again, I couldn't tell from the angle, because we were looking because it was interesting because there were people on the ground, like where you get on and off the trams, but then, like me, I was looking on YouTube because we probably had like 5 different news channels flying in the helicopters around covering it, and you can only zoom so much in the dark, in the backstage area. So from my angle, it looked like they were going through the window, but I can't swear on that. But then again, the whole monorail train itself is all electrical. So how do you prop the doors open if there's no electrical?
Well,
yeah.
you don't, and that's by design. I'm pretty sure they had a pneumatic, manual open at one point. I don't know. Somebody that's a monorail expert in the chats can probably look it up, or maybe they can tell me from memory. If one of the other versions had a manual door open close, like on an airplane for emergencies.
Sure.
I can also see guests using that and just going out of there, or just ejecting themselves out of convenience.
Yeah.
So that
Well, that's a tough situation where you're on that beam, you're stuck. I mean, that's got to be. I mean, you got to worry too because you don't have cast members in those cabins with you.
No.
So you got to worry about people panicking and doing some stupid shit because they're panicking.
Survival of the fit. Listen, it is. You are going down to base human nature at that point. Like you are establishing P corners. Somebody is going to be king of that cabin. You got your own society set up at that point by the time they come in.
Establishing P corners. I love it. No, you're right, dude. Some dude
like, I am king of this cabin. We're not going anywhere.
Some dad. He has a shirt off. He's wearing it like around his head. He's got like a staff. He's like, I'm the king of the.
And it's only been like 15 minutes at that point, but you're still just like, listen, this is inevitable at this point.
It's like Castaway.
Monorails, and we've talked about this before about obviously I don't know about the Disneyland ones, but the Disney World ones are very old. But I just looked real quick on ChatGPT. If they were going to replace them, it's likely to be at least like $1 billion. So it'd be 150 to 300 million for the trains alone, but they have to be retrofitted and fitted with the new. You got that change the infrastructure of those, and that whole thing would be likely $1 billion to replace.
But see, here's the thing, Jared. You look at Disneyland, that's one thing, but you look at Walt Disney World with all the track they already have installed, with all the trains they've already invested in, and the fact that Disney just spent $1 billion to, do an AI, project, they have the money and the means to do so. So it would cost more to rip down that stuff and get rid of it than it would just retrofitting it and buying all new trains. They already invested in it. And that's what I've said even about, the Magic Bands at Disneyland, even though so many people hate them. And I understand because they have limited use compared to Walt Disney World, but they already spent the money, the infrastructure. They've already put product out there. They've already spent so much time and effort to incorporate it into the Disneyland Resort. So why stop there? Keep going, keep evolving on it. It's the same thing with the monorails.
So I will say I don't think it would cost them $1 billion to tear all that monorail track down. You'd have to replace it with something different, but I guess the same question would apply with Universal. We were talking about this last time. Now they have the money, but are they willing to spend $1 billion on something that doesn't have any direct ROI? Because the AI deal does have direct ROI. They're going to make money from that. They're going to get usage of the tech and, control AI and all these things. That is the question I have had for I think the first time I ever talked to you, OG, on our podcast was this very subject. I looked it all up and I'm like, what eventually do they do with these? Because it's going to be a big expense to upgrade this monorail fleet because you got to buy these new trains, you got to retrofit it. But if they don't, then what do they do? Because you have monorail resorts, you have a lot of stuff built into how Disney World works. That's a perk of this. They may just go and spend the $1 billion. They may be stuck to have to do that. But that's a lot of money to spend on something that you're going to get literally no ROI off of.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough unless they roll in ROI to, because like you were saying, there are some hotels that have that direct monorail access, right? Like the Poly, doesn't the Poly have like a station?
Poly,
or something like
Grand
that?
Floridian, and
Contemporary.
So maybe the ROI for like new monorails would be wrapped into like the hotel occupancy of like these hotels that are connected to that. Maybe that's how Disney would kind of like justify it. Like,
Or what they end up doing is charging you a monorail pass when you're staying at these resorts.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about like they already upcharge for stuff they didn't used to. I could see that.
Sure.
Now, what's interesting, I think it was just like right before COVID, like 2018 era, they were going to do kind of like the Hogwarts Express, where it's like you're on the monorail and they would have projection technology that would have different scenes when you're going to like Epcot, and like the spaceship Earth might look like the Death Star and stuff like that. Like they could do some interesting things that kind of make it a draw on its own, but it's still, unless they tied a monetization directly to it, it would be really difficult to know how much, like, is this something that's bringing people into staying at these resorts or coming to Disney?
Yeah. And I personally think if they decide to spend that money to retrofit them, to get new ones, to retrofit the track as well, I think that's a possibility we could see, and that might be an add-on perk when you buy a Magic Key, or let's say you want to buy a pass for a year. That's something I could see Disney doing. I hate to say that because I know people already hate the fact that they're paying the prices they do, but again, every time they step on Disney property, they're already voted with their wallet to say, I'm going to spend the prices that Disney is offering. So, and Disney's already proven before, like you said, Jared, things they never used to charge for, now they're charging for. So hell, why not just add to the pile and, do a monorail add-on? Now, it doesn't really apply too much to Disneyland yet, because I've actually talked about before that, Toy Story out here in Anaheim, is possibly going to lead to a third gate, kind of sprawled off from Disneyland forward. And we've all said at one point or another that Garden Walk missed opportunity several times in the past, that Disney could have bought them and they didn't, but this might be another option to do so. And if they do wind up buying Garden Walk in the future, because there's really nothing going on in Garden Walk, it's almost like a dead zone pretty much, unless it's a Friday or a Saturday night, then they could tear that down, build a hotel like a Contemporary, and extend the monorail for the Disneyland Resort. And if they do that, if they decide to do that, then I could see them kind of copying their Walt Disney World counterpart, where they start charging for a monorail pass.
No, I'll tell you.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to say this while I have this on my mind, because I'll forget in like 2 seconds. You know how they could charge on their monorail is if they developed a first class system. So just like on a so just like on a plane. So you pay a little bit extra, you get first class, you don't have to sit with general population. That's something they could introduce.
You don't have to sit with the selling point. You don't have to sit with the stinky peasants. You get your own air. That part's air conditioned. Everybody else has got to be in the heat.
That's right. That's right. A no kids section.
Yeah. 10 years ago, I'd have said, no, they'll never do that. But honestly, at this point, I wouldn't be utterly shocked at all if they did it. I'd just be like, well, okay. Like,
and John makes an interesting comment. He says attendance will drop like a rock if they start charging for the monorail at Disney World.
It could, but here's the thing. Until there is a point, like so far, now attendance isn't where it was in 2019. We've talked about it before, but the revenues are up. Until these things are met with the audience and customers really pushing back on it, they're going to continue to push this. I mean, you look at the cost of the Christmas and Halloween parties, they've gone up significantly and they still sell out all the time. So until there's something they do, and if they did this, maybe this would be the one, but until they get the thing that they do and people are like, nope, we're not doing that, they're just going to continue to keep exploring these things, because every time they've done it before, it's made them more money.
And these parks are still packed. I mean, Disneyland Resort has been crazy busy because now they're giving away some ticket deal they're going on right now. And so the normies, and here's the thing too, where the normies aren't tuned in and tapped in like we are. So they just kind of, they'll just go. They don't really care as much. The diehards, we're tuned into everything and we're aware of all these little the micro transaction stuff and all the nickel and diming and all that. But then as diehards though, we just kind of like, no, I mean, not everybody, but like a lot of the diehards just will just go anyway because we're diehards. We love it. So it's like everybody is like still going. like to your point, Jared, everyone is still going, even though there's like some complaining. And if it's not affecting their money, they see that as an endorsement. They see that as like, okay, we must be doing something right because, hey, look at the attendance, look at the money we're bringing in. And that's the problem, is not enough people vote with their wallet. Not enough people are upset enough to be like, nah, you know, we're not going to go this year. And that really is the issue. And until that happens, I mean, the highest magic key out here at Disneyland is like almost $2,000 a year. I mean,
that's because I just renewed the other day and it's cost me about $1,900. But by the time by this time next year, it's going to probably be about $2,000, like OG's saying. That's the way we're headed.
Dang, that's crazy. Well, and like when you look at it from the perspective of what they're doing, I mean, it's just one of those things where you're right, OG. Like they look at that as an endorsement. Like, well, you're still coming, and I was actually surprised by that. I've been saying for a while, it's like all this stuff works in terms of the price hikes and all this stuff. It works until it doesn't. And I was really surprised as Tom Bricker at Disney Tourist Blog wrote an article, and he said the exact same thing. He was like, this works until it doesn't. And if they hit a point when it's not working, that brings up a very interesting little thing of like, what do they do at that point? Because they're okay with less attendance if they're making more money. And John MK Train said, are the margins there profit up? I'm assuming yes, considering they're just charging for things that used to be free, but I don't know off the top of my head. But I lost my train of thought. My brain left.
Oh, you were saying that they're going to do it until people just stop paying, right?
So they can hit that point, and I think they will hit it eventually. Now, the one caveat I will give to this is if there is an economic rebound, people are going to spend money. They're not going to care. I think if things continue, like if people feel squeezed, this starts affecting people with a lot of money. But if you've got people making money like they were in 2019 or something, they'll pay it and they'll keep going. And I think that's maybe what a lot, and talking about Universal, Disney, all these theme parks are just going to make hand over fist money if that's the case.
Well, and then Remy D has an interesting point here. Remy says, I think people are voting with their wallet. They're choosing to go. And that's a fair point that Remy makes here. My issue is more like I see a lot of complaining on social media from like the diehards specifically, obviously, because that's our bubble. But then people are still buying into it, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's like
the Premier Pass sells out all the time. And that's like $800 a pop or $400.
Right. Exactly. That's why I have a little hard time like reconciling this. Like I see what Remy is saying and they're not wrong, but I see a lot of people unhappy that are still going though.
Well, what's interesting is somebody told me years ago that had talked to somebody inside of Disney, and they viewed the people that complain a lot, the diehards, as like a very small minority, and their main, I guess you would say, customer base are tourists, like people that are just coming in, the people that are not the diehards. And if those people are still buying this stuff, they don't really care that much about the complaining if the money is there. I think when it all comes to a head is the complaining is there and they're not making the money. That's whenever you have to reevaluate this stuff. And I've always been very curious if and when they hit that point, what do they do? Like, I don't think they would lower prices. I think they would go much more toward the perks that are associated and try and bring that up. But that's always my contention, because as they've charged more and more of this elite experience, the perks have fallen off. And for the money you're spending, I mean, you can go to Europe for 2 weeks. Like, there's a lot of options when you have this price range. And I just don't think I think at some point they price themselves out of even some of these higher earners in terms of the experience you're getting for the money they're paying. But
well said. And Rogue Attraction says, are the normies actually upset? See, that's the thing. I don't really see much anger on the normie side.
Well, think about it. And I know this from our podcast side. Some people, if you go every 2 years, you're not going to really remember. I mean, some people will, but you're like, oh, that used to be $4. Now it's $5.50. Like, oh, okay, whatever. Like, they're just, a lot of this stuff is like, yeah, you notice it when you're there every time, like you're there constantly. But a lot of this stuff is they don't pay attention as much, so they don't notice it as much. And then they're like, well, everything else is expensive too, and they want to go. But there's always a ceiling to everything. It's just so far Disney hasn't found that ceiling that has affected them to the point where they would actually make some changes in the other direction.
Right. And when you're a normie and you're only going once a year or once every 3 or 4 years, you know, you're already got the mindset of like, I'm going into this thing spending a lot of money. It's a family vacation, you know?
Right.
Where like us, we have like annual passes and we're there more frequently. So it's more, you know what I'm saying? It's not that same mindset. And I think when you're going into it like a vacation and we got money to spend because this is a family vacation after like, you know, that we only do every now and then, I think people are more willing to kind of spend money and not really think about it as much than if you're there like every 2 weeks.
Well, and I'll tell you, for somebody like myself, I used to be a frequent flyer, and every now and then I'll get an annual pass. Like I have an annual pass right now, but then I'll go like a whole year or two without an annual pass, and then I'll become an occasional visitor. And I become an occasional visitor because I went so often that I started to not enjoy it as much. And then, you know, not in addition to that, they start making announcements for new attractions and new experiences. And I say, well, I'm not going to get anything out of the next 5 trips because these new attractions, new experiences aren't going to be open. So let me put these parks on pause and I'll, you know, do something completely different. And then I'll revisit these, you know, I'll revisit these parks at a higher frequency, you know, a year or two down the road. And what that does for me personally is it gives me a nice reset. It's a little bit of a palate cleanser, but then I'm going to be going substantially more, you know, a year or two from now versus had I just continued to keep my annual pass during that duration of time where there was nothing new for me to do. And so it's a really interesting dynamic for somebody like me who's never going to stop going to the parks. And I think Disney knows that too. Like Disney knows that there are annual pass goers who get burnt out and then they take a hiatus and then they come back with a vengeance. I mean, I feel like I've always been that kind of a park goer because my pass is always discontinuing and renewing, and I like to do other things other than going to the parks. But I think there's something to that, and Jared makes a really good point, which is like you don't remember how much things were when you went a year or two ago, and you're already going to assume like the cost is already built into the assumption you're going to be spending a lot of money. Right. And so you're not nickel and diming everything like somebody that's going with a high frequency. I mean, we know that park tickets are going up. We know exactly how much they're going up because we're going every year. Somebody that's taken 3 to 5 years off, they assume that they're already gone up because of inflation and other economic factors. The actual number, I don't think they take the time to compare the last time, how much they spent the last time they went to the new time. They just know they got to spend a lot of money, and this is how much they're going to have to pay back once their credit card is being done swiped at the parks.
Yeah, no, well said, 100%. Yeah, I actually do find myself, Jose, I'm very similar to you, where I find myself, I can't go super frequently because I do get burnt out. Like, you know, like I can always talk about these places. I love talking about it, like doing this stuff. I love it. But going, like, I couldn't be one of those pass holders who go to the park once a week. I just couldn't do it.
Yeah. Well, in many ways, that's human nature too. And to your point too, I actually think Disney wants that scenario. Like they're fine with people going less frequently, but spending 100%. More money. But they're okay with that until they're not. That's been my thesis, which sounds like it's not like nailed down in numbers. It's just like there is a ceiling for all this stuff at some point. You just don't know what it is. And they're going to find it, I think, in some point. I think within 10 years, they find it. And then they maybe be like, okay, we got to pull back a little bit here or whatever it is. But they're totally fine with that because they know that people will kind of ebb and flow and come in frequently. And that makes less crowds in the parks because, you know, we've all been to parks where it's not busy and it's a really nice experience. And we've been there when it's like, you can't even move. It's so busy and it's not a great experience. And this is kind of the mode that they're in right now and trying to figure, I guess, that middle ground on some level on some of this stuff. But yeah, no, that was a good discussion. That was just a very organic from a comment. I don't remember which comment started that, but
yeah, no, I love these little side quests that we go on every theme park and show. We go on something. And it's great.
What's funny, a little inside baseball. Before we go live, I had 3 topics. We're only going to hit 2 of them tonight. Okay, I don't put too much in here because we always have a side quest. Like every single time, there's always a good side quest we go down. And this, I thought it was really good.
Yeah, no, 100%.
I'll catch up on a couple more comments and we'll get on the next one here. Vegas Disney RTV says, I am simultaneously too young and too old for AI.
Hey, I feel you on that.
I feel that way about social media. I'm like, I don't know if I'm too young or too old for this, but it's just not me. Pandora 576 says AI makes me think of Terminator. I agree there. Storybook Sorcerer says, we use AI at my work and it's still 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. I do not think the tech is mature enough for all this yet. It's getting better, but yeah, it's at the very early stages, which is terrifying when you see all of the advancements it's making, like almost daily, it seems. There's a good one here. Where did it go? Yeah, John MK Train says, I thought the 3D stuff was all plastic. It's not. Actually, you can 3D print. They have stretchy type of stuff you can get, which I actually have, but you can actually 3D print shoes. Like, you can 3D print Crocs. Like, you can make anything, and they have metal ones too. Like, they have, if you have the budget for it, even in a home rig, you can basically make whatever's in your imagination. Like, if you go looking on YouTube and all these other places, you can find some insane stuff people make, like movie props that look real, that they're 3D printed. Like, I saw a guy that made a Wolverine cowl that looked like it was from the movie. Like, it's crazy what people can do.
Well, and in the next 50 to 60 years, we're actually going to have nanotechnology. So that's just a matter of 3D printing molecule configurations.
Yep. And then once you hit where computers have, it's not nano, it's what is the computer type that it's very like fragile right now?
Quantum computing.
Quantum computing. That is going to become, in the next 5 years, I would say, much more mainstream. And I think I saw something where like Google's quantum computer chip, that it was a equation that was going to take somebody like 5,000 years to solve. It took it 5 seconds. Something crazy.
Crazy.
So once quantum computing gets on board with AI, all of this gets insane, like beyond what we're even thinking about. It goes to levels where you're like, oh no, this is bad. And I think it is bad in many ways. It could be good in some ways, but it's all going to be crazy once it
basically the plot of Superman 3.
Yeah. And all the Terminator movies. I mean, there's all sorts of warnings out there. JTMG11 says, base human nature in a Disney park is not a good situation, dear God. It is not. But I would be a good ruler, though. In my cabin, there would be democracy, and then we deal with the ne'er-do-wellers. Okay, it would be the most organized one out there. I will say.
Would Gaston be the sheriff?
Yeah, it's been like 20 minutes and you've already got like deputies and you got a government set up. They're like, what the hell are you guys doing here? And like,
that's so funny, dude. You guys have like a little bonfire in the middle, like Castaway and shit. Like,
this is our Secretary of War. And he's like, oh,
I love it. I love
cabin 5 up here in a minute. I'm like, oh no.
The evil queen is human resources.
They got thrown out long ago. They're like, get out of here. We don't.
That's great.
All right. Well, I can't even keep with the chat. I appreciate you guys being here. I'll go down to the bottom here. Remedy says, like in any industry, there is always the 80-20 rule. 1,000%. The vocal minority complain the most, but make a small percentage of revenue. Normies are too busy with their lives to really care all that much.
Well said.
80-20 rule. The 80-20 rule can be applied to a lot of things. That ends up being very good. But we're gonna make John happy. Yeah, we're gonna make John happy here. We're getting ready to talk about Kathleen Kennedy.
Yep.
Let me find my spreadsheet that I have this. Let's see. All right, this is from Screen Rant, and we won't really use the article very much. Just a couple of things that are in it. So it's been long talked about, rumored for years, hoped about for years that Kathleen Kennedy would step down. But it seems like this one, it might be true this time, as Star Wars is officially getting new leadership as Kathleen Kennedy's replacements are revealed. There's no timeline set up here. Some people have said that she's already stepped down. Who knows what's actually true? Apparently, Dave Filoni is going to be the creative lead, but he's going to split the responsibility with Lin-Wen Brennan, who's going to handle the business end of Lucasfilm. So I guess a two-pronged question. Do you think this is good overall? What do you think about this? And do you think Star Wars can be salvaged from where it's at right now?
Yeah, I do think it can be salvaged. I do. I don't believe in the notion that Star Wars is dead. I think Star Wars is maybe hibernating, because it's definitely not what it was in terms of cultural relevancy. There's no doubt about that. But I think people still love Star Wars. They do. And I think that we've seen that even recently with Mandalorian, where it was like, that was a few years ago and it was a huge phenomenon, right? I think when you make really good Star Wars, I think people will come, but we haven't really gotten that lately. So, that's kind of why it's kind of taken a lull, but it can definitely be saved. I think this dual leadership thing is interesting on a couple levels, because this is the kind of structure that we've all been kind of, well, not all of us, but a lot of us have been wanting for the Disney company, right? That kind of that Walton Roy, the creative and the business person coming together. We'll see, you know, I mean, it's interesting because it kind of shows Disney's willingness to sort of do this kind of thing with one of their major studios. Does that mean they're considering this for the CEO spot? Are we going to get a Dana, you know, a Josh D'Amaro and a Dana Walden, for example, or whatever? Is that what this is kind of hinting to us? So that was also a thing that kind of crossed my mind. But, you know, Filoni, he has the creative chops. He is like Lucas's, like, you know,
Protege.
Yeah, protege. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he's kind of like he was always kind of like the heir apparent, at least on the creative side. But he always lacked business, though. He lacked that Hollywood kind of executive chops, right? So that's when you get Brennan in there, and she can kind of handle all the Hollywood exec stuff, the money end. So I think it's a good combination, and we'll see how it shakes out. But I mean, I don't know. I think this is cool. I mean, I personally was kind of rooting for Favreau. You know, because he kind of, I don't know, he's kind of a little bit more. I think with Favreau, you probably wouldn't even need the dual role because he has the executive chops and the creative chops.
Mm-hmm.
You can with him, you can kind of, he's a one-stop shop, which is kind of rare. But hey, if it's not gonna be Favreau, this is, I think, probably the second best thing we can get. So I'm happy about it, though. I think it's gonna be good.
Now, what do you think, Jose?
Oh man. Well, first let's talk about Dave Filoni, because I know there's a lot of people that love Dave Filoni because they enjoyed Clone Wars. They enjoyed he did Rebels as well. That was pretty good. He did the Stormtrooper one. I can't remember what that one's called. Sorry, Star Wars fans. I don't fully trust him as the creative lead. And the reason I don't fully trust him as a creative lead is because he hasn't done anything that is to the level of the originals yet. And so for me to have complete faith that he's going to take Star Wars to a storytelling creative capacity that, like, let's say screenwriter and director Tony Gilroy has taken the shows with Andor, I don't think Dave Filoni is that good. I'm sorry, I just don't.
I agree with you, by the way, completely.
Yeah. I think that had they gone with a creative lead, like, let's say Villeneuve or Nolan, something of that story, or Tony Gilroy, who did Andor, that's who personally I was rooting for to take over Lucasfilm, at least from a creative perspective. But I don't think anybody wants to fill the role. I don't think anybody wants to step in the shoes and have the responsibility and the burden of fixing Star Wars. That is one of those things where, like, it's a good and a bad thing, and I'll tell you why it's a good thing. It's a good thing because now if Dave Filoni does something that is purely under his control, we can very clearly say Dave Filoni is not the guy. Like, he only needs to do one thing for us to know, all right, this isn't going to work. Lucasfilm is going to rise and fall on Dave Filoni now.
Yeah.
Like the days of, scapegoating it to somebody else or saying, well, it was the director or this, that, and the other. No.
Or just
like,
Kathleen Kennedy getting the blame.
Or Kathleen Kennedy getting the blame blanket. Exactly. Like, Dave Filoni is who everybody is cheering for. He's going to be creative. He's going to be the creative lead for the entire studio now. If something is bad, that's on Dave Filoni. I honestly, I don't envy the man, really, to be honest with you. I think that the burden is probably more than he can take on, but nobody wants the job. That's why nobody stepped in. Kevin Feige said no. And I think this is probably even easier for him to fix than Marvel. Maybe not. I don't know. Let me know. But nobody wants the job. And if this is the best they have, I'm kind of tepid about it. I don't think that he's the strongest creative storyteller that Disney has had since Kennedy took over.
Well, I don't necessarily disagree with you. I mean, my issue with him, I think he's a good storyteller, but I do think he does lack. I still see him as an animation guy. I'll say that much. I still see him 100%. As an animation. You know what I'm saying? And I just feel like, yeah, he did Ahsoka, right? He did Mando, but not a lot under his belt with this, and that is a concern. That's a fair concern. you're right too, Jose. I don't think a lot of people want to do this job because it's a very public facing job. And you know,
you're going into essentially you're going into like a burned down house and trying to dig through the rubble of finding something you can salvage from it at this point.
Yes.
Personally, now I don't think this is ever going to be a possibility. I would like to see like Sam Whitmore. I think he's really good with Star Wars lore, really knows his stuff. I think he would be great for something like this, but I don't think he ever is going to have a chance to do it. I do hope they use him for creative side of things. But before I go on, what do you think, Conductor, about all this?
So I want to say kind of not making it too complicated from my end, you know, with Kathleen Kennedy stepping down and this gentleman coming in to replace her. I'm always a firm believer of trial and error. You know, don't shoot down the idea before it even gets off the ground. I agree with what you guys are saying about the guy and how he has issues with being creative, and you know, someone in the chat says he was probably the reason for Lucasfilm's downfall. But I'm a firm believer on giving someone a chance before you're already before you're already shooting it down, and that's the thing that I don't like in today's social media. When someone gets into a position for a company, a studio, a theme park, entertainment, or whatever it might be, people are so quick to judge and say, nope, this is not going to work. But we might all be culture shocked because they might put out a product or a content that just like, oh my gosh, I am so wrong. This guy or this lady did phenomenal. So
Right.
I'm just a firm believer in that. Now I know there's doubts here and there, and I agree with theme park philosophy here. I agree with him, and you know, it is a humongous role to step into, and any little critical, maybe negative thing that might come out of the first project of the new leader for Lucasfilms, I could see it just getting worse. So I get it. Not a lot of people want to touch it. I understand that. But personally for me, I agree with you, OG. I don't think Lucasfilms is dead. I think it could be totally revived, but the damage is so far down that it's going to take a lot of uplifting to even remotely get it close to where it once was.
Well, and I can see Disney's mindset with choosing Filoni too. I understand why they chose him, because really in the Disney era, you know, he was involved with Mandalorian, which is probably the most successful thing they've done.
Sure.
Culturally, that moved the needle like crazy. And even the animation, like Rebels, was enormously popular. And on top of that, he got the George Lucas stamp of approval. You know, so that's true. Yeah, she did. No, exactly. She did. So that's a fair point, Jared. But I think that's kind of why Disney is like, okay, he kind of checks these boxes. So, you know, but and also there's not a lot of people that want the job. There's not a lot of people who want the job, like Jose was saying. Go ahead, brother.
No, completely. Well, and I think for all the people that always said Filoni is the guy, he's here. He's the guy. And like Jose was saying, it's either going to do great with him or you're going to be like, oh, he's not the guy. Like, you're going to find out really soon off the stuff that they do after this. You're not going to have the Kathleen Kennedy ultimate, it's all her fault sort of situation that I think that I didn't like Kathleen Kennedy leading Lucasfilm. Don't get me wrong. But there's also been reports out there that Bob Iger was also influencing a lot of the stuff with Lucasfilm. And ultimately, she's the head of the studio. The buck stops with her. But I've said all along, even if you get rid of Kathleen Kennedy and you keep somebody internally, I think Lucasfilm is the problem in general. I don't think getting rid of Kathleen Kennedy solves any of this. Now, we'll see what Filoni does. But in terms of like getting Star Wars back, I'm not saying it's impossible. But at the same time, you lost a generation with the stuff that they did. You turned off a lot of the original fan base. You can I don't think you'll ever get it back to remotely what it was close to. You can get it back to some level if you do good storytelling. If you got a series of movies and shows that have been good, like 3 or 4, I would start saying, okay, it's looking like it's coming back. It's looking better. But as a whole, like the thing that they could do that would basically, it would be the quickest and easiest win, and they won't do it, is to say that the sequel trilogy is no longer canon. They won't do it. But if they did that move, they would win back a lot of people that were done with Star Wars. And they basically said, we have a fresh slate and we heard your feedback. This gives them an opportunity to do that. Now, I don't think they'll do it. But if they were, I think that would be the biggest one step you could make as an olive branch to the fan base that, let's be honest, it's been treated terribly because when there was negative responses to the movies, they turned around and insulted the fan base as racist bigots, toxic fandom, all this stuff. And never heard the feedback. And I think that just created this animosity toward Star Wars and Lucasfilm that needs to be your first step, because there's a lot of people, even if the stuff's good, they're just like, I'm done with it. So you could try, I think you try to reach an olive branch to the fan base, and then you focus on good storytelling. That would be the way to go about this. And maybe bring back the extended universe, which they axed right away when they bought Lucasfilm. There's a lot of good stories in there that you could just pull off the shelf and make.
Sure.
But
here's the thing too. I want to ask you, Jared, real quick. If you decanonize the sequel trilogy, you're right. I think a lot of people would be happy about that. But I think one of the risks that you run with that though is that now you're decanonizing Carrie Fisher's last work, and we'll never have her back.
I would much rather remember her as Princess Leia, though. I mean, you're not wrong. But I think the original trilogy characters are so disrespected and treated so terribly in the sequel trilogy that even though Carrie Fisher's still not around, you could still give her a send-off in a way without her. You don't have to go the AI route and put her into movies and stuff. But
yeah,
I just think that the way in which, like, let's be honest, Han Solo died a villain's death. Like, he was stabbed by his son and dropped down he just falls down the thing like Palpatine did. Yeah. Luke Skywalker is just an old man on an island that dies from ODing on the Force. Like, these are things that nobody wanted to see. Plus, you just add in all the stuff that happened in the movies. I think your first move should be to try and win back the fan base and Filoni knows the fan base. I mean, I agree with Jose. I don't think Filoni's that great, but he does know the fan base. I think that should be move number one, is to try and repair that. I just am curious as to, like, let's say Diamaro's in charge. Like, it could be a different scenario if you don't have Iger meddling, which he reportedly again was. Yeah. Maybe there's free reign to do some stuff here that they weren't allowed to do. You have the potential. I will completely give it that. I just don't put any hope in it.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And honestly, I think one of the things that really hurt Lucasfilm too is that Kathleen Kennedy is a very corporate person. Mm-hmm. She's like a Bob Iger, but at least Bob Iger has charisma, right? Kennedy doesn't even have the charisma. She seems very businessy, Yeah.
Mm-hmm. She's a suit.
She's a total suit. But here's the thing: Marvel had Feige, or they still have Feige, and he's like a fan and a nerd, and he's like, you know what I'm saying? So Feige would get up there on like Comic-Con stage and D23, and fans like him because he's one of us, right? I think having Filoni, this is where I think Filoni will be strong, in that he kind of has the Feige thing where he's a fan and he sees the franchise more like we do. I don't think Kennedy sees it the way the fans do. And I think that's always been kind of a problem, And
if she does,
an executive,
And if she does, that hasn't been directly translated to the fans. If she does, I'm not saying she doesn't, because she's been working for Spielberg and Lucas for the last 30 years. For all we know, she's probably the biggest Indiana Jones and Star Wars fan, but that hasn't come across on TV and through our conversations, right? So I do want to ask you guys this though, because Lin-Manuel Brennan is the other side of this very important co-management decision. I don't know if you guys looked up Lin-Manuel Brennan's career or what she's done for Lucasfilm or ILM.
I haven't. No.
So apparently she's been with Lucasfilm and ILM for 25 years. She started at the very bottom with special effects, and she's worked her way all the way up now to the top of the co-CEO of the studio. But here's the thing. She's I'm just looking this up on ChatGPT. Anybody's more than welcome to verify everything that I'm saying here. But she she has direct control and authority over budget planning before production begins, and making sure production stays on track in terms of costs.
That's a big.
I don't know if she was the direct authority of things like Andor and Acolyte and Indiana Jones.
Right.
But all of these productions went way over cost, way over budget. I like vastly. And, whether you factor in COVID or not, I think is pretty irrelevant. All these things went way over budget. I don't know how qualified she is in terms of budgetary allocations and then escalating it to Disney, because I don't know specifically what projects she has been associated with in that budget allocation capacity. But if we're to assume that she has been, and or maybe the buck stopped with her because she has been the president and general manager of Lucasfilm Business, which is right underneath Kathleen Kennedy, I don't think that looks good for the budgetary process for Lucasfilm, who has been basically drowning in terms of their margins and net profits of basically everything that they've done after Rise of Skywalker.
That's a fair point.
Well, then Rise of Skywalker's budget was reportedly they may not have actually made money on Rise of Skywalker. The budget was so high on that movie. Who knows where it's at? But that's a very good point. And I think if you look at, like, I do think Kathleen Kennedy was way in over her head. Ego got into it. And she made some wild statements. She said things like, there's no source material when it comes to Star Wars. Sitting right next to George Lucas. He's the living source material that you can just basically be like, hey, George, what do you want to do? And don't forget, he wrote treatments for the sequel trilogy that they completely ignored. So it might be now Filoni. I don't know. Now, I don't think George is coming back. I don't think he should. He's made more money off this deal than he's got all the money he ever needs. I don't know. He's actually just distanced himself from Star Wars. But Filoni could get, if you got George Lucas to be like, hey, we're going to start talking to George. We're going to listen to George. That would go a long ways. Like, again, while he's alive, if you got him involved in this, if he's willing to do it, that would go a long ways with the fan base, and you could pick his brain more. And you do have source material you could use. It's very similar to Marvel. Like, I get very perplexed many times of there's so many successful books and comic books. You could just pick them up off the shelf and just use those as your source and be great. And I like I said, I think there's a lot of reasons. I think the chances of this being rehabbed are, in my opinion, not favorable considering where the fan base is. But if you do think Filoni is the dude that could do it, here's his shot. And he has, and from here on out, like you won't be a guess. Be like either Filoni does great or he crashes and burns.
Well, let me ask you guys a question. Well, I should say real quick. Let me ask you guys a question. What do you think about? Because they're likely not going to decanonize. But what do you guys think about them? Should they lean into sequel trilogy era stuff to fix the sequel trilogy perception? Because if you make more sequel trilogy stuff and the new stuff hits, you change the perception. Kind of similar with the prequels with the Clone War show.
Mm-hmm.
Or do you back off a sequel trilogy and just kind of like take a 20-year break from that?
I think if you I think the sequel trilogy existing is the main issue a lot of people have. It's my main issue. Like, when I watch the original trilogy now, I know what happens to Luke. He doesn't become an ultimate badass. He just goes off to an island and drinks green milk. These characters, where they end up, is not satisfying to the fan base. So to me personally, like, yeah, you could improve the sequel trilogy, but you still have Rey telling Han Solo, like, teaching him about flying the Millennium Falcon. You still have all these issues with this stuff that is further just going to be people like, yeah, it's better, but it still sucks. At least to me. Like,
that's fair.
No, you're not wrong. But one of the things, we've seen with Lucasfilms, and Jared, you actually brought it up. It for me, it was the new trilogy that they came out with Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, and The Last Skywalker. The problem I have is not the movies so much. The movies had their own issues. We can all agree with that. It's the fact, Jared, you mentioned that Lucasfilm as a company started attacking fans online verbally. That right there was their biggest downfall. It wasn't necessarily the movies they put out, even though they were way off base. It was the fact that the company started attacking fans online, and you don't do that as a company. And sure in the hell, that right there is exhibit A of why they lost so much of the original fan base, because you just do not do that. I don't care what your excuse might be, because that's the beauty of social media nowadays. People are allowed to express their opinions on things, no matter if we disagree with it, if we agree with it. It's just like what we do here on theme parking and other YouTube channels, and we go on each other's channel, we talk about things, we debate about it, we discuss it, we get the chat's opinion. That's the beauty of it. But when you have a company like Lucasfilm attacking fans like that on social media, that's a big problem. That's where their downfall was.
Well, and here's the thing too. I'm a big K-pop guy. I love K-pop. But what a lot of these K-pop record labels do, because one of the big issues that came up was like Lucasfilm felt that a lot of fans were attacking Kelly Marie Tran and what have you, right? Okay, fine. They're attacking Kelly, right? What the K-pop record labels do though is they take legal action against like crimes that are committed, threats, things like that against their talent, right? And I've talked to Seymour Duck about this in a few videos, but I think that should have been the route that Lucasfilm should have gone. If there were laws broken, if they were harassing your talent, you protect your talent through the law and through lawsuits and whatever. But you don't get on social media though, on Twitter, and go tweet for tweet and start going in the mud with fans. You know what I'm saying? Use the legal system, use what you can to protect. You should protect your talent. That you absolutely should. If she's being harassed or she's being threatened or in any way, that's Disney's responsibility to protect her. But you don't do it by getting on Twitter and calling people names. Like that's like the worst thing you could possibly do. All you're doing then is just fueling it even worse, you know?
Well, and you also, it's the internet. So there really terrible people that wrote terrible stuff? I'm sure undoubtedly that happened, but you also don't act like that the ones that did represent everybody. And that's what Lucasfilm did. They took some of these comments that were made by some people and just applied it to the entire fan base when people had legitimate criticisms of a character or a movie. And that maybe they said that Kelly Marie Tran's character was pointless, which I would agree with. They took that as, well, that's a personal insult toward that actress. And lumping it in with all these other things when you're talking about the movies and stories themselves. I think that's the thing that they did. And obviously they didn't work out well, because look at where Star Wars is. And anytime you're going to, it would be like having you run a store, and every customer that comes in, you start yelling at them that they're bigots if they don't buy something from you. Well, guess what? They're not going to come back. And it's the same thing when you're talking about entertainment. Like, you do this enough, and Star Wars was massive. And mind you, the Star Wars fan base is what made it relevant enough to stick around for Disney to pay $4 billion to buy it and have all the hype. So the people that kept it alive, once you got it into your possession and you started making things with it, and at first it went great. You had Rogue One, Force Awakens, people were excited. I was excited. And then once The Last Jedi came out, a lot of that, obviously, and Jay, our good friend Jay Shears talked about it. Most of the time we talk about Star Wars now, it doesn't become Star Wars topics. It becomes all the things around it, all the stuff you're putting into it, and it almost becomes political in nature. And then you've lost the whole plot, because it's no longer about Star Wars. It's a battleground for ideology and these other things you want to put into it. And at the end of the day, you're like, I just like seeing space wizards do cool stuff. And that's what you want to see. You want to see good versus evil, and evil is defeated. And I think they just lost the plot due to probably ego and thinking like, well, we're Lucasfilm. What are they going to do? Not watch Star Wars? And they kind of did. Anyways, like they fell off, and I think they just got away from it.
You can't you can't insult the fans. I mean, regardless of whether you disagree with their opinion on stuff or not. I mean, Lucasfilm should have just ignored all that. And if there were crimes committed, harassment, whatever, against their talent, then you take legal action. But to get on Twitter and start to, it is not a good look, and it made things way worse. Sorry, Jose.
No, you're good. Well, let me ask you guys this. I'm really interested to see if there's a consensus, because I feel like I feel like as Star Wars fans, we can come to a consensus on what they need to do. I'm just not sure. Just not sure if it's a majority, but I have suspicions that it is. What is the film, the show, the character that Dave Filoni needs to drop as his first film or show as the chief creative officer of Star Wars to hook you back into Star Wars? Like, what is the movie? What should it be titled? You don't have to be very specific as far as the title, but like, who should it be centered around in the Star Wars universe for you to go, you bastard, I'm in?
It's a good question. For me personally, now again, I don't think this would happen. I would be really intrigued if they did come in and they say sequel trilogy, it's wiped. It was a dream. It was a Luke Skywalker hallucination, and they decided, and they had the adventures of Luke Skywalker after the Return of the Jedi. Like him really having his powers, expanded all the things he could do. Also, you get into some Darth Vader centric stories that was going on between the prequels and A New Hope. Like there's some cool things too. Those I think, because I think if you go in and try and fix the original characters and at least give them their due in terms of what the fans wanted and expected when Disney bought Lucasfilm, that then if those go over well, it gives you the ability to then expand further. But if you just ignore it, to me, it's like ignoring you have a sickness and you're just like, it'll work itself out. I think you need to deal with that. Personally speaking, for me, I would be very interested in kind of back in if they started going that route. That's just me, though.
One of my biggest critiques of the sequel trilogy was the way they handled Rey. And here we go, right? but the way they handled Rey, and the reason why I didn't like how they handled her is because they kind of went the safe route, or not kind of, they really went super safe with her at the end. I think she should have gone full dark side, embraced her Palpatine roots, and became Empress Palpatine. She was badass in those visions where she was dark side Rey. To have the last scene in that movie, to have her sitting on Palpatine's throne, and then have Ben Solo now the light side guy, you set up the next trilogy perfectly, because now you have your baddie, you got Rey, and then you have Ben Solo, and it's like poetry, it rhymes, right? Because they started off dark side, light side, and then they swapped by the end, and then you set up the next trilogy really nicely. That would have been a kind of a cool kind of thing, but they didn't. They didn't do that. They got into this convoluted mess with Rey, where she's a Palpatine, but no, she's like adopted by the Skywalkers and the whole thing. Really weird shit. You know what I'm saying? But to answer your question, Jose, I would like to see something completely, like maybe more like Knights of the Old Republic or something like that, where it's like very separated from what we've seen so far. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Where let's just go in for all new characters, but like Knights of the Old Republic, but like done with like House of the Dragon quality though. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Dude? Like that kind of thing, dude. I'd be all in, dude. That would be amazing. I would love that. Yeah.
So you hire a director who's done big productions for like Netflix or Amazon. You bring them in, you give them the budget they want, you set the stage that it's going to be a story about Jedis and Sith 2,000 to 3,000 years ago. Maybe it's a little bit more antiquated feeling, so that way it feels more foreign, but you still recognize that it's Star Wars. Yeah, I'm down with that. What about you, theme park conductor? What's going to be the hook for you? Like, what do you need to see from Dave Filoni to say, all right, you got me, and now anything you do, I approve? Because I think this is important. This is super important for Dave Filoni to get right for his first production under his belt.
Sure. No, absolutely. I think personally, because they already came out with season 1, and I would personally, for me, I was not disappointed. I would like to see a confirmation they're gonna bring back a season 2 of the Obi-Wan series. I thought that was, I loved it. I really did not have any disappointment. Now, when it also comes to that, I also would like to see like a backstory, like a whole story of Darth Vader after episode 3. That's really what I want to see. What happened all those years later when when he got the new suit, how he adjusted to it, how he was finding his feelings about missing Obi-Wan, and how his how he lost his wife and the and his constant struggle about his kids. I would like to see a series about that. So those two things would hook me back in.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. It's interesting to see. I mean, and another thing that I want to ask you guys.
Sure.
Do you feel, Jose, do you feel that Filoni is a little too steeped in the lore? And what I mean by that is like, do you feel like he has the ability to kind of play to the normie crowd enough? Or is he a little too much of a Star Wars lore guy? Where like, it's a little too inside baseball. Can he break away from that and get more normie driven? Because you got to have the normies on board too. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's actually a really good question. I'm just trying to figure out if being too into the lore is inherently a good thing or a bad thing, because Peter Jackson had to be really into the lore in order to get Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit trilogies right. And they even used creative liberties to adapt the books into the movies, so that way, they can make 3 books into 3 epic films. There's a lot of things that were left out, but there were also things that they invented that just made it flow better for a film. And even in the Hobbit movies, they actually created characters to develop romances, and they turned the Hobbit into a trilogy that set up the Lord of the Rings films. And they took things from the Silmarillion and put them into the Hobbit, which were just on a time frame, completely different places in the story. But I think that being in lore is good, because you're always going to have people that are really into lore. What I think is more important is Dave Filoni going to be a good storyteller, so that way when he's tapping into the lore at deep levels, people can enjoy it just as much, whether they want to enjoy it casually or whether they are heavily into the lore and the stories and all the little micro stories that connect the Star Wars universe together. I think that's what's really important, is he has to be a storyteller that can appeal to both your people that are really into the Star Wars lore, and on an emotional level, it needs to connect to the normies the same way the Lord of the Rings films did for people that had never read the books. I have never read the Lord of the Rings books. The Lord of the Rings movies are my favorite movies of all time, and rightfully so. I mean, they're the best. In my opinion, they're the best trilogy ever made. I think that's a point that a lot of people are willing to argue. The Hobbit movies are 3 very good films. They get a lot of backlash, which I think is very much undeserved, but they're very good films. Not as good as the Lord of the Rings trilogy, but they emotionally resonate because he understands fundamentals of storytelling when it comes to characters and protagonists, and the stakes were really high. If he can't execute on those things, then it doesn't really matter how much he gets away from the lore to try to appeal to the normies. But he has to be able to convey conventional storytelling points in a way that resonates with people that just like to enjoy films, whether he's really into the lore or not.
Well said. Yeah. Well said. Yeah, and one of the things I think Star Wars has really struggled with the Disney era is, I think Mando and Grogu were fantastic. I think the reason why they were so great is because you fell in love with those characters. But I think for the most part, though, Disney has had an issue kind of building characters that people are growing fond of. They had some good setup with the sequel trilogy characters, but it didn't go anywhere. They got to get people hooked on some of these characters. Everyone is still enamored with the old stuff and the old characters, but Disney needs to start building their stuff. And they're really, outside of Mando and Grogu, what characters do people care about in the Disney era? I mean, there really aren't any, right?
Right, exactly. And liking Grogu is completely different than liking Han Solo or Luke Skywalker, because these are fleshed out human characters with human emotions and human problems, of which Grogu, I mean, you can argue he has some problems, but the people that enjoy Grogu are liking him for completely different non-human attributes, right? They like him because he's cute, because he does funny things, because he trips and he falls and he gets himself back up and you go, oh, I love it when he does that. That's completely different than, like, let's say, why I'm going to use Lord of the Rings again as an example, but like why friendship is so important for Frodo and Samwise as they're going up Mount Doom against all odds to destroy, the one ring to rule them all. Like, that is a completely different thing. One can last forever. One does not. One is a fleeting emotion that you enjoy. I mean, we can all agree, right? Like the Grogu love is over. The Grogu relationship, that's done. That's like a high school girlfriend, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But when you go and watch Luke and Han, or Han and Leia, I mean, these are eternal. These are moments that have cemented themselves as eternal in cinema because the fact that they had developed concrete relationships by overcoming unimaginable odds. The same thing with, the Fellowship of the Ring. Same thing. If Dave Filoni can't nail that, like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And Jared, while you were gone, the question is can Dave Filoni balance the depth of his understanding of the lore with good storytelling, and what is it that he really needs to nail in order to win both back? And I made the argument that you can do both. Like, Peter Jackson was heavily into the lore of Lord of the Rings and J.R. Tolkien's novels, but it was the translation into the movies and fundamental character storytelling that made the Lord of the Rings essentially the best trilogy ever made. And like movies you can just go back to again and again and again, and you just watch, you're just like, how is this so good? As opposed to, why did politics get involved in this film, and why is why is this movie ruined?
Oh, sorry, I was muted. No, I agree. I think this is a really good point. Lord of the Rings is timeless in that way. I think if you get back to just like, if you can, at the very least, even if you don't go the route I was saying about get rid of the sequel trilogy, whatever, if you pull it back to just the basic storytelling elements, if you understand good guys, you understand bad guys, you bring in these themes that are kind of part of human nature in many ways, and you resonate with people on and I think I got the part where you were saying, like, you go on a journey together. Like, if you can get these core elements, that it's not groundbreaking stuff, it's just not done much anymore.
Yeah.
And you combine that, like, I'm not going to doubt Dave Filoni knows his Star Wars lore. It's just the questions of, there's been criticism about him about liking Ahsoka and always putting Ahsoka and everything. Is he able to really balance out and take his personal favoritism taking a back seat to, maybe if you're trying to rehabilitate Star Wars, I do think you need to try and give people what they have wanted. And I think at this point where you're at and where Star Wars is, that needs to be kind of on the front burner of this, of like trying to give people stuff that they've been asking for, they've been complaining about. And then once you have the confidence and people are like, okay, Dave Filoni is the guy to lead this, I like where this is going, then you've got a little bit more flexibility to start, using your lore about extended stuff beyond that. But I think Lord of the Rings is a great example of just keeping it simple, but giving the people what they've been asking for in many ways will give you an olive branch, and just getting back to basic storytelling and getting rid of all these extra elements that have been included in Star Wars in recent years, and just getting back to the basics. And I think that would do a lot for, and like I said, I don't think they're ever going to get it back to where it was, because a lot of people, once they're out forever. But you can build it back. Like, I don't think it's dead, but I think it's definitely...
It's definitely going to be an uphill battle. For
100%. I mean, you're talking like you've got a Honda Civic trying to tow a rig up a hill. Like, it's tough. You might be able to do it, but you've got to be able to execute this really well. And I think the main thing would be just like gaining the confidence that, like, you're not going to have the rug pulled out from under you. I think a lot of the audiences now are just always waiting for what's coming next. And if you can get the confidence back and people trust you, you have a shot. And I would just get it that way. If you can get a shot at this, that is kind of a really good scenario in all of this. And
So-
if he can prove me wrong, he can prove everybody else wrong, then I think he's the right guy, he can go that route.
Well, and you bring up a great point, Jared, about simplicity. A lot of the most beautiful things in Star Wars are the very simple kind of relationship stuff, right? Like, for example, Han and Chewie. Lucas even said Chewie was based after his dog, right? And it's like that. It's like Bill, and we talked about dogs pre-show before we went live today. But like, those relationships with our animals are special for everybody, And George Lucas tapped into that through that Han Chewie relationship. It's a very simplistic thing, a man and his dog, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, but it's like relatable though, weirdly enough. Because it's like,
right.
you know what I'm saying? But it's a very simple concept. So I think that we need a little bit more of that. I think that was kind of a little bit with Mando and Grogu, tapped into a little bit of that kind of that fun relationship, dynamic, which is why I think it was so successful. Those two, they got to get into more of that, I think. And like that's like the heart of Star Wars, I think, a lot of that, and then you can mix in the lore and stuff too, but
Well, on its face too, if we're just going to be like quick girl bossing everything. Like you can have chicks in Star Wars, but not everything has to be that like every dude's defeated by a chick. And I think that is one of the issues people have had. But I think it also just comes out of like the original Star Wars in many ways was ultimately like a father and son story about redemption. And I think redemption is a really big thing that you could play into, because obviously at the very end of Star Wars, like Luke, which is why a lot of issues with The Last Jedi was Luke never fully felt that his dad was gone. Like, I still have hope. And a lot of it was hope and human nature. And like those elements being brought back into it would be really refreshing. I just don't know where the current state of Hollywood, where Lucasfilm is as a whole, what this is going to look like. If they just move along and just business as usual, we're just going to continue to make the stuff we want to make because we think it's cool. I think you're ignoring a big issue that they have, and they'll be capped on how much they can actually rebuild all this.
Well, and it's going to be very interesting to see, because we're going to have a new CEO in about a year and a half, I think, or something like that, right? And we're going to have new leadership at Lucasfilm. So we're getting rid of Bob Iger and we're getting rid of Kennedy. So I'm very curious how this is going to work, because this is a new these are new captains in this ship, So because everything we've heard, and you're right, Jared, everything we've heard, it's been Kennedy and Bob Iger, and a lot of talk about Iger meddling and what have you. With him gone and her gone, now we can see, okay, like let's see how Filoni and Damaro, because it'll be Damaro, let's be honest, how they handle it. I'm very curious. I don't know. It could be more of the same, or it could be better. We don't know. It's rough, man. But they've
gives you a shot of a fresh slate for Disney and Lucasfilm to reset. Yeah. It does give you that potential and shed off some of this stuff that has been. Even Bob Iger has said getting out of some of this culture stuff. Like they had the shot to do it. Now, whether or not that'll happen, we'll have to wait and see. But it is there. And I don't think Kennedy leaving at the same time of Iger is a coincidence, by the way. I kind of feel like that is very connected.
She was 100%.
Like she was always going to leave whenever Iger was leaving, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you guys this too. I'm going to kind of open up a little bit a can of worms, a little side quest here, right? Okay, so obviously Lucasfilm, the bulk of it is Star Wars, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But a little bit of that is Indiana Jones. Now, Indiana Jones is kind of a different kind of animal, because it's really just one dude. Star Wars is this whole universe you can play with.
Mm-hmm.
Indiana Jones is Indiana Jones, Harrison Ford. How do you continue that franchise? Obviously, Harrison Ford ain't doing another one. He's getting way too old.
Yeah.
So what do you do with that though? Like, do you just do animation from here on out for Indy? I mean, you don't want to shelve that great franchise, but then again, do you really want to recast? I don't know.
Well, see, this is how I would do it. You make a great point, OG, because Harrison Ford, I kind of feel has really done a great job with Indiana. Maybe not the last movie they put out, but all the other ones, even Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I know a lot of people hated it. It took me a while to kind of accept it, even though there were certain aspects I didn't like about it. But one thing I would like to see is, before Harrison gets any more like frail than he already is because of his age, one thing I would like to see is maybe a movie, maybe a next movie to the Indiana Jones series, and it's kind of a transition movie where you still have Harrison Ford, but he's not as active in the movie, and he doesn't make that much appearances, but somewhere at the beginning of the movie he kind of passes the baton. I think if they do something like that, if they want to continue the Indiana Jones series, then that new person can take that role, and they would feel better about it because there was a story that led into that, instead of just saying, "Oh, here you go." But then again, you could go that other route, because when you look at James Bond, for example, how many James Bonds have we had? A lot. So you know,
Yeah.
it kind of
Well,
it's
let
a
me-
touchy subject.
It is. No, it is. And here's the other thing too. One of my favorite shows when I was a kid was Batman the animated series. I thought that was like that is like the official Batman, you know?
Yep.
What if you took that animation style and
Sure.
that seriousness where it's not a jokey, like whatever. I mean, obviously you want to keep it within the Indiana Jones vibe and everything, but like if you took the Batman the animated series animation style and how they approach that show for Indy and like an animated, like Indiana Jones the animated series, would you guys be down for a direction like that, like on Disney Plus or something? But like, I'm not talking about a cheesy cartoon though. I'm talking about like,
Yeah.
you know,
I think that would be cool. Animation's less risky because it doesn't, people look at it a little bit different. It has, I would be down for it. Like, I love Indiana Jones. I love ancient civilizations. I love, I love all that stuff. Like, I love the Uncharted games. Like, if you're going to tell me we're going to go find old treasure and old forgotten cities, I'm in 100%. It's just, as Lucasfilm is now, I don't trust it. But speaking of Conductor's point, this is actually a pretty good idea from God Convoy Prime. Release another indie movie where Indy has to rescue his son, which was Shia LaBeouf, in Vietnam, and he encounters a curse thing or like Vietnamese spiritual demons. Indy dies and Mutt picks up the torch, and basically instead of him being like actually dead, he was like a POW. That would be interesting because I think that's what they were trying to set up, that he had a kid, and then they completely stripped it away. But I would love to see more good Indiana Jones. It's just the first three were so perfect. Like, they were just so good.
Hard.
I don't think anything in modern day tells me that you can make anything remotely close to a Raiders of the Lost Ark. Like, might be one of the most perfect movies ever made. Like, it's just how do you top that? And I think and not every franchise has to be, or every movie has to be a franchise that goes on forever too.
Yeah,
right.
But they have done damage to it, and you could do some stuff with it. Like, animated stuff would be interesting. You could do things with it, but it's a tall order to. I mean, first off, I would say fix Star Wars, and then if you're able to successfully do that, then maybe dip your hand to Indiana Jones after that.
Yeah. No, it would be interesting. Now Rogue is saying Sebastian Stan would be.
He's been brought up about Luke Skywalker too.
He has. That's interesting.
Apparently, he's playing Two-Face in the new Batman movie.
Okay.
Really? Okay.
Mm-hmm. I think
I'm kind of curious. I'm kind of curious how if they casted the right person, if the fans would be okay with that. I know there was rumors just the other day that they were going to recast Black Panther.
Oh, okay.
Oh, right. Yeah.
They should have done it the first time.
Yeah, and I guess they're gonna. I forgot the guy's name. It's Idris.
Is it Idris Elba that's playing Black?
No, it's not. It's not him. Same name.
It's British Black Panther. What are you doing here?
What are you doing here? I love it.
I am Black Panther. Sean and Noani says, I would reboot and go with a whole new indie, or you can go with a new character who is influenced by indie and goes on their own adventures. Yeah, it'd be really tough. That would be a tall hill to climb as well. Maybe bigger even Star Wars, think you're going to recast Indiana Jones as synonymous as Harrison Ford is with that.
I like OG's idea where you explore the character through different mediums. I think an animation is great because you don't have to cast Harrison Ford. Obviously, you really don't need the rights for his likelihood. You can get somebody that sounds like him. I think video games is another another avenue. This Indiana Jones game that recently came out. Webba loves it. He says it's one of his favorite games of all time.
I've played it. The story would make a fantastic movie. Like I didn't like it was first person, which I think it should have been third person. But the game itself, I did enjoy. And the guy that voice acts for Indiana Jones it almost sounds exactly like Harrison Ford. I can't remember his name, but he's really good.
Yeah, Mr. Rubba loved it, and he got like the box set. It came with like a globe and everything. It was crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, they had a whole collector's thing. I played it on Game Pass, and I like you go to Egypt and the pyramids. You're going into the underground. Like I was down with it. I thought it was a cool. You also went into the Vatican. You had some cool elements to it. Like it has potential, but and John M.K. Train said Glenn Powell. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys you could use. Yeah. I just think if you're running Lucasfilm, you got to at least try to rehab Star Wars before you do anything else.
Well, and I think, listen, when I was asking which, what do you think would be a good starting place for Dave Filoni to win back the fans that left the fan base, bringing them back into the fold, and then pursue newer, maybe more risky stories. I agree with you. I think your take is spot on. There is a large size, almost seismic size of the Star Wars fan base who wants to see a continuation of Luke, Han, and Leia post Return of the Jedi, including myself. I think that you owe to the fans, primarily because you've already hinted that was the direction you were going to go with the story from Mandalorian Season 2. And if anybody forgot, the reaction to Luke Skywalker coming back in Mandalorian Season 2 is still probably one of the most epic things that have ever happened in the Star Wars community, other than The Force Awakens. I mean, people went absolutely batshit crazy when Luke Skywalker showed up.
Oh, he looked so good too. It was crazy.
That's what you always wanted to see was Luke at his full powers, just going ham on all this. And you're like, I remember the first, I didn't expect it. I was like, this is what I want.
100%. And if I'm Dave Filoni, I come out with a standalone film. You can write scripts for 3 movies if this one is successful, but you make sure you come out with a really damn good standalone film of Luke, Han, and Leia post Return of the Jedi and how they form the Jedi Temple and the New Republic. You start there as a starting point. You fucking nail it. And if it does well, you drop 2 more films, but at least give us a badass Luke Skywalker film. And then you can do Mace Windu and Knights of the Old Republic later on. But like you said, first and foremost, you owe it to the Star Wars fans that have left to give them the Luke Skywalker film post Return of the Jedi that they've wanted for the last 35 years. So I think that if I'm Dave, like that's a complete oversight if that's not your starting point in my opinion. I'm not saying you can't do Mace Windu. I'm not saying you can't do Mace Windu and Yoda and everything else, but I don't know. It just seems like an olive branch that's necessary, that it's almost unavoidable to move forward unless you do that first.
Well, and like if you nail that, it's kind of like Marvel at its prime, where you had Guardians of the Galaxy. Guardians of the Galaxy worked because you had the confidence of the fan base. Nobody knew what Guardians was. And then you're like, oh, we'll go check this out. It gives you the freedom to then explore Mace Windu and these other things if they are like, okay, we like where this is going. And so at this point, I'm back in and I'm interested in what you have to say about what happened here. Like you have to regain that trust. And you're working from a position where you just don't have it at this point. And I agree again, God Convoy, and I said it earlier, decanonize a sequel trilogy and do the things we were talking about. You'd get that would be a great first thing they'll do. Now, the reason I don't think they'll do it is because I don't think anybody's going to come in there and allowed or willing to basically say, my predecessor messed all this up. That's the other thing that gets into the internal politics of Lucasfilm. I don't think they would do that because of what that would make it look like for Kathleen Kennedy. And I think that's still going to be something in there.
And for everybody that doesn't like the sequel trilogy, there's a Star Wars fan that loves the sequel trilogy. And so you don't want to get into a situation where now you're in the same situation, but now the inverse. Now you're driving away people like the sequel films. You want to create an environment where people just love Star Wars, no matter whether they're sequel fans, prequel fans, original fans. Like you want to try to build on just, I don't want to say be more divisive, right? Obviously you don't want to be more divisive. So I'm not for rebooting the sequel trilogy. I know that that's like a like a dream for a lot of Star Wars fans. But the problem is again, you're in a situation where you're driving fans away when you're trying to gain trust of the Star Wars fandom. And I know that'll gain trust for a lot of people, but again, it'll lose a lot of trust for a lot of Star Wars fans.
Thing is, there's probably not a simple way to fix all of it either. Like the mess they put themselves in, you're gonna make somebody mad. Like you're kind of in a pit, and you're like, how do I get out of this? I'm gonna have to step on somebody's back to get out of here. And it's gonna be really interesting to see how they handle this and what direction they go, or if they go any direction. If they just keep going the way it's gone. I mean, this is the same thing we talk about with Disney. Like, just if it's gonna be DMRO, does he do anything different than Iger, or is it just status quo? Like, these are all questions that eventually will be answered, but I suppose the potential is there. I'm just not going to hold out a lot of faith that they're going to do much. I would be pretty shocked if they made some pretty drastic changes, even though I think everybody's telling them they should. You know, the way kind of modern Hollywood is, they don't like to take risks, and I think they would view a big change to the Star Wars universe as too big of a risk, and they would just try and just do story. Or you could just go 1,000 years into the future, 1,000 years in the past, and just get away from that timeline. That is one thing you could do, which they might.
Yeah.
They might do.
Well, that's what I suggested when you stepped away for a second, Jared. I suggested maybe doing like a Knights of the Old Republic, but like in the quality of like a House of the Dragon. You know?
Oh yeah.
I mean, that would be freaking sick.
Knights of the Republic is a great storyline. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, that would be cool.
There's a lot of content. I mean, yeah, you have Knights of the Republic, Tales of the Jedi with Ulick and Kay Kaldroma. Very good stories. And for most Star Wars fans, I think that they would be new because there's a lot of Star Wars fans that read that old stuff or maybe even played Knights, but your normies don't know what Knights of the Old Republic is, and they don't know what Tales of the Jedi is. So it'd be very new to a lot of normie Star Wars fans, and that'd be a good way to get people reinterested because it's still Star Wars, but it's fresh and it's new.
Yeah.
And so
and you're not messing with the original trilogy characters where you got to get into a little bit of a tightrope with that because the way you handle it might make some fans happy, might make some fans mad, but with the other stuff that's thousands and thousands of years prior, it's kind of a fresh slate, you know?
Yeah. You can also get into like the Jedi Temple establishment. Like that stuff would be really interesting to get into, of like establishing the Jedi Order and all the things. Like there is potential. So I won't be surprised by that. But no, I think we had like 3 or 4 side quests, as OG said, and talked about this stuff. That was really
cool.
You guys
real quick, I just want to say one thing. Speaking of Indiana Jones and speaking of like doing like cool Star Wars stuff, right? It would be dope. And maybe I'm not like really steeped in like a lot of the comic book stuff and all the novels and all that. So maybe this has already been done. I don't know. But it would be pretty dope to have an Indiana Jones kind of character in Star Wars, like a galactic archaeologist who explores the temples or the ancient pyramids on these various planets and shit. That would be sick. That would be really, I would love to see that, you know?
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
That'd be
I mean,
fun.
you can look at Star Wars as many ways. Like Han Solo was a space cowboy. Like you could do more stuff. Yeah, you could do some stuff like that. I mean, Star Wars wasn't like, there's a lot of elements in Star Wars that they're borrowed from other genres. Like you can clearly do that and do it well if you can write it the right way. But we will see. You guys, anything else you want to add on this?
Well, I think I got everything out.
All right. I think so too. Well, I think we've been going for almost 2.5 hours, so I don't want to leave everybody here hang up on a Friday evening. So I think we're going to end it here. By the way, thank you, chat. You guys were going crazy. I couldn't even keep up with all the comments. So definitely appreciate all the interaction and you guys hanging out on a Friday night. I know you got a lot of streaming options. We're glad you chose this one as your place to hang out. Before you go, though, we're going to say goodbye to everybody here. So be sure to subscribe. I'm going to put everybody's stuff below in the description on Capture the Magic. You can go subscribe over there. Go check these guys out. But Orange Grove 55, thank you for being here. And where can everybody find you?
Yeah, Jared, I want to thank you for being an amazing host. As always fun talking shop with you and Conductor and Theme Park Philosophy. I want to thank you guys. Chat, everybody in the chat, thank you all so much for hanging out tonight. You can find me right here on YouTube, Orange Grove 55, talking all about all this nerdy stuff with these fine gentlemen all the time, whether it be Theme Park Studio, all that good stuff. Also on Instagram, Orange Grove 55. I do have a Next account. I haven't logged in a while, and today I logged in for the first time, and it was like, oh, okay, this is why I don't log in. It was like, what?
What account was it?
My X account.
Oh, I think you said next. I was like, what?
Oh,
next?
yeah, no, my Twitter account. I haven't logged in for the longest time, and I log in, and it's like, it's a total, like, it's a mess. I mean, it was just like, oh gosh, this is why I don't come in here. This is crazy.
Yep.
But you can find me there, Orange Grove 55. And again, want to thank you guys and gals for joining us this evening.
Absolutely. Theme park philosophy, Jose, thank you for being here, and be sure to go subscribe. Jose, I will say, I've said many times, you say things in a much more eloquent way than I'll think it, and you say it, I'm like, that's a good point. So I feel like theme park philosophy is a great channel name. It fits exactly how you look at stuff. So go check it out. He's got some really good perspectives and content over there. But where can everybody find you on all the stuff you do?
Well, first of all, Jared, thank you for the compliment. I really appreciate that. And I think the same about you, right? So I consider you a highly intelligent person. I only surround myself with intelligent people, or at least I try. I think everybody should try to surround themselves with people that are better than themselves. It's the only way you really get better. But thanks for hosting this good theme park. And again, thanks for everybody in the chat and hanging out on a Friday night. You guys are awesome as always. As far as where you can find me on my YouTube channel, which is Theme Park Philosophy, where I use philosophy to examine theme parks, the companies that run them, and what they reveal about the human experience. So if you're into that kind of stuff, go check out my YouTube channel. And I also have an Instagram account, which is just Theme Park Philosophy, a little bit more casual, just me in the parks, BS and stuff like that.
Awesome.
So go check it out.
Awesome. Love it. And of course, we have Mr. Theme Park Conductor joining us out here from the West Coast. And I appreciate Conductor. It was a late notice when I told him about it. And I told OG this. I was like, I always appreciate that I don't know of any time I've ever said, hey, man, you want to hop on a live stream? And he's like, no. He's always like, I'm down. So I appreciate it. It's always fun having you on and talking about everything. And where can everybody find you on YouTube and social media?
Absolutely. And I want to give an extended thanks to you, Jared, for always hosting these theme park live streams. I love it. I love talking with you gentlemen. It's a great time. And also theme park philosophy. I love your perspective on these topics. You're really, really intelligent. You're really detailed on how the conversation's going. So I always respect that. And it's just something I love talking about. And it was a great time tonight. I can't wait to be back. But you can find me on YouTube and Blue Sky at Theme Park Conductor, on Instagram at theme_park_conductor, on X at Theme Conductor, TikTok at Theme Park Conductor 1, and every Sunday at 5 or 7 p.m. for Conductor Sunday live stream, where we break down Disney and Universal news. We speculate, we talk rumors. We have amazing guests like the one and only Orange Grove 55, Jared from Capture the Magic, and hopefully very soon Theme Park Philosophy. And this weekend, we're going to have Orange Grove 55 and Sam Chat. It's going to be Sam Chat's first time, so I can't wait to have him on and pick his brain about the theme parks.
Yeah, awesome. Sam is fun.
I think we're gonna have Sam Chapman on here sometime soon too. So OG was telling me about him. I was unaware, but I was like, well, if OG vouches for him, then hey, it's good for me. So I'll check out his content, and I always like having other perspectives on here. But this was a lot of fun. Actually, we had some really good conversations out of this. I really enjoyed tonight. And again, thank you guys to the chat for everybody being here. Hope you guys have a great Friday night. Have a great weekend, and we will see you guys on the next one. Take care, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.
Good evening. Tempers flared at Universal Studios tonight when the park ran out of its signature drink, butterbeer. What started as disappointment soon grew into a noisy confrontation with security and police.
Merry Christmas. Ho, ho, ho. It's Christmas. Yeah. Sleigh bells ring. It's Christmas. Gift in my hand. It's Christmas. Grab a quick more Christmas. Right up the block. It's Christmas. Yeah.
Yo! Move! Back up! Oh my God! It's hitting the monorail!
Get ready to blast beyond your imagination at the all-new Epic Universe theme park.
It's the adventure of every world in one place.
Thrill through twisting coasters, journey through cosmic frontiers, and end your night under dazzling...
Buckle up, time travelers. Blast through the past, rocket to the future, and hang on tight as you chase the clock in the ultimate adventure. It's fast, it's furious, and it's only at Universal Studios Orlando. Back to the...
Hello, neighbor. Welcome to the Capture the Magic channel. I'm so glad you found your way here. I've heard that the host, Jared, is a very handsome and charming guy. And you know something? I think you'll enjoy listening to him a whole lot.